Welcome to Senpai, your new home for immersive manga, manhwa, anime-inspired novels, and fantasy audiobook stories. Here, every episode brings you into a world of overpowered heroes, revenge arcs, cultivation journeys, virtual reality games, monsters, magic, and emotional character moments. Whether you enjoy dark fantasy, action, reincarnation, system stories, or epic adventure novels, Senpai is here to turn every chapter into a cinematic listening experience. So relax, put on your headphones, and let the story begin. Subscribe to Senpai and join the journey. On the city walls, the players of World Server 616 were utterly dumbfounded. They had expected a grueling, desperate siege. They were prepared to fight to the death. Even if they died, it would be glorious. They would not let the other World Server bastards laugh at them. But the scene before them made all their preparations feel completely unnecessary. A monster horde invasion? No, this was clearly Faustus alone, slaughtering 5 billion monsters. And growing stronger with every kill. Am I dreaming? A warrior muttered. If you're dreaming, so am I. The mage next to him looked equally dazed. Are we dreaming the same dream? Stop talking, Sunborn bellowed. What are you standing there for? Faustus Alma is killing up ahead. We can't slack behind, those are free dungeon points waiting for us. Right. Kill monsters, grab points. Charge, brothers. Thousands of players poured off the city walls, crazily diving into the horde to mop up the monsters Faustus had missed. The scene looked like a pack of lion cubs following a lion king. The king hunted, and the cubs ate the meat. Global live stream, Faustus channel. Haha, this is killing me. World Server 616 can clear this while lying down. Faustus Sama kills up front. They clean up behind him, perfect coordination. Thanks, other World Server guys, for the free gift. Meanwhile, World Server 1213 was deathly silent. Utter silence. After a long while, someone shakily typed, "Did we do something wrong?" No one answered. They all knew the answer. They had done wrong. They should never have gifted Faustus 5 billion monsters. Daniel's assault hardly paused for a moment. Every arrow he loosed became a torrent, sweeping away countless monsters' lives.
Ding. Permanent buff gained, Skill Replication, Legendary grade.
Notice. Your buff stack has reached the dungeon maximum, 40 stacks. Increase your character level to unlock higher limits. The system alert sounded constantly in his ears, but he had no time to care. With Skill Replication, each arrow effectively shot 50 identical attacks at once. A single etherlance meant 90 golden streaks tore through the air, trailing scorching tails into the horde. Area of effect skills were even more terrifying. Arrow Storm and Shattering Comet were already 100-meter range skills, but with 50-fold replication, they intertwined into a domain of death comparable to a forbidden curse. Wherever the arrows passed, monsters could not even leave ash behind. If the system did not restrict his firing speed, Daniel could likely annihilate all 5 billion monsters in no time. But on second thought, the restriction hardly mattered. After all, no matter the enemy, a single etherlance could end everything. Once he reached level 150, he could study the true forbidden art, Skyfall Cataclysm. With Stellar Wrath in hand, each skill's power would double, making forbidden skill damage unimaginable. And as Stellar Wrath grew, these numbers would continue to climb. Half a day passed. Daniel looked up, and the once ocean-like flood of monsters had been partially slaughtered, over 1 billion down. Yet the remaining monsters still surged toward the city walls. Flying beasts' wings blocked the sky, hovering above the fortress, intercepting arrows and spells. Melee players on the walls could only helplessly look up at their airborne enemies. Their blades could not reach the sky, and shields could barely withstand diving attacks. The siege monsters' rank far exceeded ordinary wild monsters. Without Daniel holding the line, the remaining players alone could never have defended the city against the tide of 5 billion monsters. World Server 250, Main City. The commander of World Server 250, Johnson, sat atop a silver-white unicorn, inspecting the perfectly arrayed legion before him. On the distant horizon, heaps of siege monster corpses formed mountains, and the air was thick with the scent of blood. Besides World Server 616, the other servers' castle defenses should all be completed. Johnson asked his adjutant quietly.
Correct.
I hear only World Server 616 is still fighting desperately. The adjutant replied calmly. A satisfied smile crept across Johnson's face. The 5 major servers had pooled resources, drastically increasing the siege difficulty for World Server 616. No matter how godlike the monster called Faustus was, the players of World Server 616 would surely suffer severe losses this time. Such an opportunity cannot be missed, he murmured, a cold gleam in his eyes. If we can seize this chance to capture their castle and eliminate them completely. He straightened, facing the ready legion, his voice echoing across the field. Warriors, glory belongs to us. Crush World Server 616 under our feet. Behind him, tens of millions of players shouted in unison. Glory belongs to us. Crush World Server 616. Freedom and honor together. Meanwhile, World Servers 1213, 82, 840, 38, and 706 major servers in total marched simultaneously toward World Server 616's castle. A grand army of 500 million players. Their only goal, to wipe the castle completely off the map. The next day, World Server 616 Castle.
Ding.
Item obtained. Teleportation Scroll, Rare, ×1.
Ding.
Item obtained. Teleportation Scroll, Rare, ×1. Daniel's bow never paused, turning the last stubborn monsters to ash. Netherlands. -4,288,566. -4,549,686. -4,665,658. 50 golden streaks tore through the air, impaling the remaining monsters onto the scorched earth. No large monster clusters remained. Only scattered stragglers struggled under the walls, soon eliminated by defending players. Daniel exhaled slowly. The first stage of the dungeon finally over. For others, this battle was intense. For him, it was a rebirth. Permanent buffs stacked layer by layer, exponentially increasing his strength. Now, each attack dealt over 4 million damage, just shy of the 5 million threshold. He opened his backpack, eyes falling on a few archaic-looking scrolls. Teleportation Scroll, Rare. Restriction. Only usable in the dungeon. Effect. Teleports the user to any castle in any world server. Description. A special item for the Battle of Desperation event. It disintegrates if removed from this dungeon. Daniel traced the runes on the scroll's edge, a cold glint in his eyes. Perfect timing. This was exactly what he needed. One scroll meant one chance to descend straight into the enemy's lair. And what would happen after arrival? At the thought, the corners of Daniel's lips curled upward slightly, though there was not a trace of warmth in that smile. Just then, the system notification arrived right on cue.
Ding.
Congratulations to World Server 616 for completing the first stage mission. All surviving players receive an SSS grade reward, Gold grade EXP card ×100, 000.
Ding.
Congratulations to player Faustus for successfully leading World Server 616 in repelling the monster siege. Personal contribution, 96%. Special bonus reward granted. Epic grade EXP card ×10, 000. At the same time, the 500 million strong allied army from the 6 world servers was gathering 100 miles away. Dungeon announcement. The first stage mission has fully concluded. The second stage, Endless Warfire, has now begun. Notice, all world servers, protect your own castle and the safety of the player bound to it. If the castle falls or the bound player dies, that world server will be eliminated. Notice, once a castle falls, the bound player's coordinates will be marked on the map. After hearing the announcement, the commanders of the 6 world servers exchanged a knowing look. World Server 616 might have survived the monster siege, but by now they had to be exhausted, a spent arrow at the end of its flight. No need for tactics. Just charge straight into World Server 616 and crush them. Can't be helped. Most of the players in World Server 616 are basically cheating anyway. We have to eliminate them first, or the rest of our servers won't stand a chance later. Against World Server 616, let the players of World Server 1213 take the lead. Count in World Server 82-2. I've been sick of them for ages. On the World Channel, the clamor and provocation from the other servers rose one after another. Daniel glanced at the teleportation scroll in his backpack and slowly crushed it. Notice, you have used teleportation scroll, Rare. Please select a target castle for teleportation. World Server 1213. Teleportation initiated. The next instant, white light swallowed everything. When Daniel's figure solidified again, he was already standing inside a completely unfamiliar castle. Notice, you have successfully descended upon the defensive castle of World Server 1213. He swept his gaze around. The streets were empty, and the defenses lax. It was obvious that the players of World Server 1213 had sent nearly all their main forces to the battlefield of World Server 616. A few of the players left behind were the first to notice this uninvited intruder. They froze for a moment, then their expressions turned vicious.
Huh?
A player from World Server 616? That's strange. How did he get in here? Who cares? This guy's probably some scout from World Server 616. Enough talk, kill him. They drew their weapons and surged toward Daniel. Daniel let out a cold laugh. Shattering Comet. Etherlance. Arrow Storm. 3 powerful skills erupted at once. Countless arrows wove together into a net of death, covering a full tenth of the castle. -4,649,579. -3,784,986. -3,894,864. Crimson damage numbers poured down like a waterfall. Players of World Server 1213 fell in waves, dissolving into white light. After only 2 volleys, not a single living enemy remained anywhere in the castle. And when those slain World Server 1213 players awoke at the respawn point, what awaited them was a reality even crueler than death. Level -5. Core equipment lost. Backpack completely emptied. And on top of that, an astronomical debt. Wait, what happened? What the hell happened to my account? Isn't this completely ruined now? This is ridiculous. I'm reporting Faustus for cheating. I got killed, lost all my core gear, and now I owe Faustus several million gold coins? What kind of hellish joke is this? I'm so mad I'm laughing. Wasn't the saying that ants can bite an elephant to death? That guy on the other side isn't even a living creature. What even just happened? Why did I suddenly die? I spent a whole month grinding this gear and these levels. Their anger and confusion filled the air, yet no one could answer them. Daniel stepped over the wreckage and walked straight toward the depths of the Lord's Manor. The dark gold stone monument stood quietly at the center of the hall, runes flowing across its surface and casting a dim glow. Without hesitation, he raised stellar wrath and fired an etherlance at it. Arrow storm, shattering comet. A rain of arrows poured down onto the monument, and damage numbers exploded wildly across its surface. -4,649,676. -4,649,676. -4,649,676. After only 3 attacks, the monument was already covered in spiderweb-like cracks. Then the 4th etherlance slammed into it. The castle monument shattered with a thunderous crash, exploding into fragments across the floor. Notice, you have destroyed the castle monument of World Server 1213. Reward obtained, Flight Mastery Fragment, Supreme Grade, ×1. Notice, the castle of World Server 1213 has fallen. The coordinates of the bound player have been marked on the map.
Ding.
Million-fold boost triggered. Obtained, Flight Mastery Fragment, Supreme Grade, ×1. At the same time, the dungeon announcement rang through the minds of every player.
Ding.
World Server 1213 has been eliminated. Far away on the battlefield of World Server 616, the players of World Server 1213 heard the announcement, and their minds went blank. What happened? Our home got raided? Can someone tell me how the enemy got into our castle? Their castle defense battle only just ended. How did Faustus suddenly appear inside World Server 1213's castle? Shit, that cheating bastard. He must be hacking. Damn it. To all players of Stellar, let us unite in protest against Faustus's cheating behavior. Let us stand together against this hacking dog dash. The players of World Server 1213 were left utterly lost and bewildered. Meanwhile, Daniel did not remain idle. He had already crushed the 2nd teleportation scroll. The strange movements of World Server 1213 soon alerted the commanders of the other allied servers. Mr. Zoro, your condition doesn't seem quite right. What happened? The commander of World Server 250, Thompson, spoke with a hint of probing in his tone. Zoro's face was pale as paper, and his voice trembled uncontrollably. Lord Thompson, our castle has been taken by Faustus. At those words, a sharp gleam flashed through Thompson's eyes. How was that possible? Faustus wasn't in the castle of World Server 616? He knew exactly what that implied. Unlike Zoro, who was furious and horrified, Thompson was filled with delight. Without Faustus's protection, the castle before them was nothing more than a lamb waiting for slaughter. If they could seize this chance and take it in one stroke. But just as the corners of his mouth began to lift, a cold system notification cut through his fantasy like a blade. Ding dong. Attention, all players of World Server 250. Player Faustus of World Server 616 is attacking the server's castle monument. What? The smile on Thompson's face froze instantly. Wasn't Faustus in World Server 1213? How could he possibly? How had he done it? Damn that Faustus. Despicable coward. Thompson's roar exploded through the channel, shocking his subordinates into silence. Yet the nightmare was far from over. World Server 250. Daniel's figure appeared in the core of World Server 250's castle. The players left behind did not even have time to react before they were swallowed by a sky-covering rain of arrows. After several rounds of bombardment, the castle monument was smashed into powder. Notice, you have destroyed the castle monument of World Server 250. Reward obtained, Flight Mastery Fragment, Supreme Grade, ×1.
Ding.
World Server 250 has been eliminated. Commander Thompson, who had been directing the advance, heard the announcement, and his expression changed drastically.
What? No.
His shock and fury had not yet subsided when another announcement exploded through the air.
Ding.
Attention, all players of World Server 82. Player Faustus of World Server 616 is attacking the server's castle monument. The castle monument has been destroyed. The castle of World Server 82 has fallen. Notice, all attributes of all World Server 82 players have been reduced by 10%. World Server 840 has been eliminated. World Server 700 has been eliminated. World Server 38 has been eliminated. One system notification after another rang out like funeral bells. The 6 commanders looked at one another, their faces ashen. Everyone, at this point, there's no saving the situation. Someone clenched his teeth and said, since Faustus isn't there, we might as well gather all our strength and take down World Server 616's castle in one push. Exactly. If World Server 616 falls too, we'll all be back on the same starting line. That cheating dog Faustus has gone too far. We have to let him have a taste of what it feels like to get his home base raided too. At once, the 500 million strong army surged madly toward World Server 616's castle. Faced with this torrent, the defenders of World Server 616 were forced into continuous retreat, their numbers dropping sharply. Ding dong, the number of players in World Server 616 has sharply declined. Current strength evaluation. B rank. Stage clear reward increased to 10,000%. Hearing the prompt, Daniel arched a brow. He immediately crushed the last teleportation scroll and rushed back toward World Server 616's castle. On the battlefield, a warrior from World Server 616 blinked behind a player from World Server 1213 and brought his greatsword down with vicious force. Minus 54,640. Critical hit. The player from World Server 1213 had his HP instantly reduced to a sliver. Just a little more. Damn it. Unwillingness flashed through the eyes of the World Server 616 warrior. The player from World Server 1213 was still shaken, secretly thanking his luck that he had obtained several defensive buffs during the castle defense. If not for that, he would already have been eliminated. But his relief quickly turned into terror. Without warning, countless arrows descended from the sky, engulfing him and the companions around him at the same time. Minus 4,499,794. Minus 4,676,499. Minus 4,979,464. The player from World Server 1213 did not even have time to let out a scream before he was burned to ashes. At the respawn point, for system notifications echoed in his ears like the whispers of a demon. You were killed by player Faustus of World Server 616. Debt effect triggered. Current debt, 220,000 gold coin. You were killed by player Faustus of World Server 616. Death curse triggered. Current level -5. You were killed by player Faustus of World Server 616. Death curse triggered. 6 pieces of equipment forcibly dropped. You were killed by player Faustus of World Server 616. Death curse triggered. All backpack materials and items forcibly dropped. WTF? He collapsed onto the ground, dazed. Could this game still even be played? Losing 5 levels was one thing, but what kind of logic was this debt mechanic? And why the hell had all his core equipment dropped too? Countless players from World Server 1213 fell into the same shock and regret. At that moment, waves of alarmed cries erupted across the battlefield. Faustus. It's Guild Master Faustus. Oh, Lord above, is Faustus a devil? Wasn't he just at our castle? How did he return in an instant? How is that even possible?
Focus fire.
Everyone focus fire. If each of our hundreds of millions of players lands one hit, that's still hundreds of millions of damage. I refuse to believe he can tank it. The moment Daniel appeared at the center of the battlefield, the already despairing allied forces from the outer servers completely lost their minds. Countless skills, arrows, and spells poured toward that silver-white figure like a violent storm, blotting out the sky. Yet Daniel did not even bother to dodge. Stellar wrath formed a translucent barrier around him, and the attacks powerful enough to tear through city walls did nothing more than send small ripples spreading across its surface. His gaze remained calm as still water, as though the vast army before him were no more than a passing breeze. And by now, the spectator channel had completely exploded. The barrage from countless World Server 616 players overflowed with feverish excitement. Lord Faustus, show them what true slaughter looks like. Lord Faustus is too merciful, he actually still gave them a chance to attack. Haha, these idiots really didn't use their brains at all. Did they seriously not think about how those 5 billion monsters got wiped out in just 2 days? Lord Faustus, turn those foolish players from the other worlds into ashes. The fierce discussion flooded the screen like madness. Within the dungeon, Daniel slowly raised stellar wrath. A pale golden halo spread outward from his body, cleansing all negative statuses. Arrow storm. A tide of black arrows swept downward, covering several hundred meters straight ahead. The outer server players caught in the arrow rain did not even have time to scream before dissolving into white light. Shattering comet. Countless arrows fell from the clouds, pinning vast swathes of enemies onto the scorched earth. Etherlance. 50 golden streaks of light ripped through the air, trailing blazing tails as they pierced through the crowd. Where they passed, they left behind only massive, charred trenches. As far as the eye could see, dense crimson damage numbers stretched like a blood-red galaxy, staining the entire sky red. Minus 4,546,464. Minus 4,949,769. Minus 4,649,466. With every wave of arrows that fell, hundreds of thousands of players dissolved into white light. Those white lights fell so densely they became a tragic sea of radiance across the battlefield. Daniel stood amidst mountains of corpses and rivers of blood, firing arrow after arrow, wave after wave pouring forth like a tide. His MP seemed endless. His stamina seemed inexhaustible. The scene was like a god passing judgment upon all living beings. Dungeon announcement. Player Faustus of World Server 616 has killed more than 20 million players. Dungeon achievement obtained. Bloody judge. The cold, synthesized electronic voice fell into the ears of every player from the outer servers, like the sentence of death itself. One skill, and hundreds of thousands were annihilated. That scene was simply too horrifying. No, seriously, are we sure this game is called Stellar and not Faustus's playground? Fuck. What are you idiots still standing around for? Run. A cold glint flashed through Daniel's eyes as starlight shimmered across stellar wrath. Shattering comet. Arrow storm. Etherlance. Wherever the arrows swept through, entire swaths of players were erased, leaving nearly a third of the crowd gone in an instant. Dungeon announcement. Player Faustus of World Region number 616 has killed over 100 million players. Obtained the dungeon achievement, Reaper's Scythe. The spectator channel exploded. So this is the ultimate form of a top-tier player? What the hell? One skill into a crowd, and it gets wiped clean? Is this guy playing some kind of match 3 game? Invincible. At this moment, that word has literally taken form. Time passed amid endless slaughter. Several hours slipped by in the blink of an eye. When the final flash of light faded, not a single enemy remained standing on the battlefield. Dungeon announcement. Player Faustus of World Region number 616 has killed over 400 million players. Obtained the dungeon achievement, Hell Tyrant. Dungeon announcement. World Region number 1213 has been eliminated. Dungeon announcement. World Region number 250 has been eliminated. Dungeon announcement. World Region number 82 has been eliminated. Dungeon announcement. World Region number 700 has been eliminated. Dungeon announcement. World Region number 38 has been eliminated. Dungeon announcement. World Region number 840 has been eliminated. The elimination notices rang out one after another, until at last, silence returned. Aside from World Region number 616, all players from the 6 strongest foreign world regions had been completely wiped out. Holy shit, we won. One player from World Region number 616 muttered in disbelief. It's hard to believe, but yeah, we really did win. Someone clenched their fists so tightly their knuckles turned white. Thank God for Faustus. Thank God for him. Dungeon announcement. Phase 2, Endless Warfare has ended. World Region number 616 has successfully cleared the stage. Dungeon announcement. World Region number 616's clearance rewards have been increased by 10,000%. All players of World Region number 616 receive contribution points plus 10,000, gold coins plus 10,000. Dungeon announcement. Player Faustus contributed 99%. Obtained special rewards. Flight Mastery Fragment, Epic Grade, ×1, Hidden Dungeon Exchange Interface, points plus 100,000. Dungeon announcement. The dungeon event, Battle of Desperation, will close in 30 minutes. All players, please exchange your points as soon as possible and leave in an orderly manner. A flood of system prompts rang out by Daniel's ear one after another.
Ding.
Obtained Flight Mastery Fragment, Supreme Grade, ×1, points plus 3.8 billion. He opened his inventory. 7 Arcana fragments lay neatly lined up inside, each emitting a faint glow. Flight Mastery Fragment, Supreme Grade, ×7, can be synthesized. His gaze sharpened, then shifted to that special reward. Hidden Dungeon Exchange Interface, unique. In all his previous lives, he had never once heard of such a reward. A sharp light flashed through Daniel's eyes. This was most likely a reward that could only be unlocked by fulfilling some extremely specific trigger condition. And his heaven-defying performance in this event had clearly satisfied every last requirement. Daniel first took out one of the pale golden fragments from his bag and examined it carefully in his palm. The fragment was roughly the size of a hand. Its surface was carved with intricate rune patterns, and faint starlight flowed along its edges. Flight Mastery Fragment, Supreme Grade. Type: Synthesis Material. Synthesis Requirement: Legendary Grade Engineer. Description: a fragment containing ancient flight arcana. Gather all 7 to synthesize a complete flight arcana core. Once fused with a wing apparatus of legendary grade or above, it will grant a transcendent power of flight beyond mortal limits. After reading its description, Daniel's lips curved slightly upward. His secondary class just so happened to be Legendary Grade Engineer, so once he returned to Polaris City, he could begin the synthesis process immediately. But for now, there was something even more important to do. Before the dungeon closed, he had to exchange the points in his possession for the most valuable items possible. Dungeon Exchange. He murmured softly and raised his hand to open the exchange interface. Whoosh. 2 translucent panels unfolded before his eyes at the same time. The one on the left was the normal exchange panel. On the right was a line of pale golden text. Hidden Dungeon Exchange, exclusive to Faustus. The normal exchange was no different from what he remembered from his previous life. But the items in the hidden exchange interface, every single one of them was at least gold grade or higher, and each could only be exchanged once. Moreover, every exchanged item was bound. Of course, the point cost for the hidden exchange items was equally outrageous. Daniel glanced at his total points. Current dungeon points, 13 billion. That amount of points was enough to leave any player dumbfounded. But Daniel knew that in the hidden exchange interface, even that enormous sum might not last long. His eyes moved to the hidden exchange panel. Hidden Dungeon Exchange. Special items: potions, equipment, weapons, pets, skill books. Daniel opened each category one by one, his gaze swiftly sweeping across the dazzling assortment of items. Then his eyes suddenly locked onto one particular item and could no longer move away. Water Elemental Core. Grade: Supreme Grade. Exchange requirement: 5 billion points. Description: a core containing the source strength of the water element, a crystallization of the elemental plane's origin. Only beings at the level of an elemental lord are capable of condensing it. Daniel barely hesitated before clicking exchange immediately. Only after that crystal, radiating a deep blue glow, dropped into his palm did he let out a long breath. In his previous lives, countless players had shared a single dream: to gather all 7 elemental cores and unlock the legendary Chronoverse Prologue Codex. Time reversal, spatial lock, space-time collapse. Those space-time skills, powerful enough to rewrite the course of a battle, were the lifelong pursuit of every player. And now he had already taken the first step.
Ding.
You have spent 5 billion points and obtained Water Elemental Core, Supreme Grade. Daniel carefully stored the elemental core in his bag, then continued browsing the exchange list. After obtaining the Water Elemental Core, he still had more than 7 billion points left. It did not take long before his attention was drawn to a certain skill book. Prompt: do you wish to spend 1 billion points to exchange for the skill book, Serpent's Thunder Cell, Legendary Grade? Yes. Daniel's pupils contracted sharply. The current version skill cap was only SSS grade, yet this skill had actually surpassed the version limit. As expected of a reward from an exchange interface with such absurdly difficult trigger conditions, the threshold was high, but its value was just as astonishing. Daniel did not hesitate in the slightest.
Ding.
Obtained skill book, Serpent's Thunder Cell, Legendary Grade. He opened the skill book, crackling with violet lightning. Serpent's Thunder Cell, Legendary Grade. Type: Archer active skill. Effect: draws upon the power of lightning in the sky to create a thunderstorm domain over a designated area. Range: 1,000 by 1,000 meters. All enemy targets within the domain are forcibly afflicted with the following debuffs: paralysis, silence, and slow. Within the domain, 100,000 lightning serpent arrows are automatically generated, continuously attacking all enemies in range. Each arrow deals damage equal to 100% of the caster's attack power. The duration of the thunderstorm domain is controlled by the caster, consumes 1% MP per second, and may be terminated at any time. Description: a divine skill created by the ancient god of archers after comprehending the law of thunder. 1 arrow summons heavenly lightning. 10,000 arrows descend like a raging tempest. Those trapped by this arrow can only stand there and await thunder verdict. A smile curved Daniel's lips. With a large-scale archer skill like this, combined with all of his stacked buffs, a single rain of arrows would be enough to cover an entire city. By then, destroying a city with 1 arrow would be no joke at all. Only a legendary grade skill of this level was worthy of his current strength. Learn. Prompt: you have learned the skill, Serpent's Thunder Cell, Legendary Grade. This skill is absolutely worth far more than 1 billion points in the current version. I really hit the jackpot this time. No wonder everything in this special exchange interface was forcibly bound. After all, any item capable of surpassing the current version's limits was blatantly overpowered. Daniel closed the skill panel and continued browsing the hidden exchange interface. Before long, he spent another 3 billion points to exchange for an epic grade item.
Ding.
Consumed 3 billion points. Obtained special item, Banner of Valor, Legendary Grade. Daniel took the banner out of his inventory. It was a silver-white war banner, embroidered with a brilliant star across the fabric, with golden tassels lining the edges. The moment he held it, a heavy sense of duty surged from the bottom of his heart. Banner of Valor, Legendary Grade. Type: special item, bound. Effects: when equipped, it can collect the lingering souls of powerful members of your race. Default: human. The lingering souls of legendary grade experts can be transformed into tangible relics, with the relic type determined by the obsession they held in life. Each soul collected requires 1 trillion gold coins, and each soul transformed also requires 1 trillion gold coins. Description: from the moment you take up this banner, you become the backbone of your race. Its survival or destruction, its prosperity or decline, shall be decided by you. After reading the description, Daniel solemnly equipped the war banner. With this item, if a human watcher fell in battle in the future, he would no longer need to scour the world for their remains. He could simply use the Banner of Valor to transform the soul into a relic, then revive them with seraphic revival. In the versions to come, every battle will be an apocalyptic disaster. With this, humanity's fate may not be as tragic as it was in my previous lives. Those 3 billion points had been more than worth it. He glanced at his remaining points. There were still over 3 billion left. I thought having over 10 billion points was a lot. Daniel shook his head with a bitter smile and turned his gaze toward the potion tab. Plunder epic grade. Exchange requirement: 100 million points. Daniel possessed the Eternal Ring talent, which allowed any potion to be converted into a permanent effect. Naturally, there was no way he would let such a top-tier potion, something impossible to buy outside, slip through his fingers. Exchange.
Ding.
Consumed 100 million points. Obtained Plunder Legendary Grade Potion. Plunder Legendary Grade. Effect: after killing a target, automatically obtains all items on the target's body. No looting required. Everything is automatically added to your inventory. A sharp gleam flashed through Daniel's eyes. This potion complemented his Endless Despair and Death Curse potion perfectly. From now on, any player killed by him would not only fall into debt, but also lose levels, equipment, and supplies all at once. A perfect example of what it meant to be sent back to square one overnight. He tilted his head back and drank the potion in one gulp. The bitter liquid slid down his throat, and an invisible power spread through his body.
Ding.
You have consumed Plunder. Its effect has been converted into a permanent effect, Eternal Ring Bonus. After that, Daniel spent another 900 million points to exchange for a series of potions that increased intelligence, agility, and attack power.
Ding.
Consumed 300 million points. Obtained meditation elixir, legendary grade.
Ding.
Consumed 300 million points. Obtained holy water of agility, legendary grade.
Ding.
Consumed 300 million points. Obtained violent energy nectar, legendary grade. He drank them one bottle after another, and with every system notification, the power surging through his body rose explosively. With these potions, my strength is definitely going to soar by a huge margin. Prompt: you have consumed meditation elixir, legendary grade. New permanent bonus gained. Intelligence plus 5,000. Prompt: you have consumed holy water of agility, legendary grade. New permanent bonus gained. Agility plus 5,000. Prompt: you have consumed violent energy nectar, legendary grade. New permanent bonus gained. Attack power plus 300%. Daniel opened his status panel and glanced at his current base attack power. Base attack power, 5,959,949. Nearly 6 million. He had long since surpassed the 5 million threshold. And at that very moment, another system prompt arrived right on cue. Prompt: your base damage has exceeded 5 million. Hidden achievement, boundary breaking strike achieved. Reward obtained, bloodthirst emblem, legendary grade, ×1. Equip effects. Life drain, passive when dealing damage, siphons 5% of the damage dealt as HP for the user. Healing shield, passive excess healing is stored as a shield, with a maximum shield value of 1,000. Daniel raised a brow, immediately noticing that this piece of equipment was unbound. After a few simple steps, the item was sold into the guild shop and quality boost was selected.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Obtained Hellfang Supreme Grade. Daniel took out the emblem once more, except now it had turned a deep dark crimson from end to end. Hellfang Supreme Grade. Equip effects. Blood Pact, passive. When dealing damage to an enemy, automatically plunders their life force, converting 50% of the damage dealt into vitality for the wearer. This power can instantly heal wounds and mend broken bones. Blood Soul Barrier, passive. When vitality overflows, the excess life essence condenses into a dark crimson blood soul shield surrounding the wearer. Base shield value, 500, current level. 1. Base shield value increases after leveling up. Description: according to legend, this emblem once belonged to a fallen blood prince. In the final moments of his life, he sealed his lifelong thirst for blood and obsession with immortality into this dark crimson badge. Daniel immediately pinned the emblem to his chest. With this piece of equipment, as long as he could deal damage, he would be able to recover HP endlessly. And any excess healing could be converted into a shield, meaning his survivability in battle would rise to yet another level. Now this is good stuff. He closed the emblem's detail panel and continued browsing the hidden exchange interface. Very soon, something else caught his attention again. Special Unit Class Awakening Scroll, legendary grade. Exchange cost, 70 million points. Daniel's eyes lit up, and he clicked exchange without hesitation.
Ding.
Consumed 70 million points. Obtained Special Unit Class Awakening Scroll, legendary grade. He took the scroll out of his inventory. Holy Light Guardian Class Awakening Scroll, legendary grade. Effect: can evolve an epic grade unit into a legendary grade unit. Description: the crystallization of humanity's most elite power. They are humanity's strongest guardians. Even legendary grade experts would find it difficult to break through their defensive line with ease. A burning light flashed through Daniel's eyes. A top-tier legion like that was naturally something. The more he had, the better. He immediately swept through the hidden exchange interface, buying out every kind of class awakening scroll from military units across various grades, spending a total of 1 billion points. Now that he already had the special unit class awakening scrolls, the only things left were population and legion warriors. Thinking of the world-ending calamities he would face in the future, enemies numbering in the tens of billions at every turn, the mere few million NPC troops under his command were nothing more than a drop in the ocean. Daniel shifted his gaze to the normal exchange interface. He spent 500 million points to recruit 50 million legion warriors of various unit types.
Ding.
Consumed 500 million points. Obtained gold grade warriors of all troop types times 50, 000, 000. Prompt: please designate a city on the map. The legion warriors will arrive in that city in 30 minutes. Ironforge. Daniel selected the location. After settling the legion warriors, he turned his attention to NPC population. With 100 million points, he exchanged for 100 million NPC civilians, assigning them to Ironforge and Polaris City, respectively. Ironforge's capacity was limited, but there were many medium and small cities in the surrounding area. As for Polaris City, being a main city, accommodating over 100 million people was easily within its means. Immediately afterward, Daniel used the remaining 400 million points to purchase a large quantity of potions, EXP cards, skill books, and companion eggs. These items were not expensive individually, but their sheer quantity made them immensely valuable. With this batch of consumables, both the guild players and the NPCs under his command would experience a significant rise in strength. Daniel knew very well that the flap of his butterfly wings had already stirred up an incomparably violent storm in the world of Stellar. The progress of the game was accelerating forward at a terrifying pace, yet the NPC nobles slumbering within the human empire were still immersed in the old order, utterly unaware that the tide of the times had already changed course. They would not even realize that disaster was drawing closer at an ever-increasing speed. Every version to come would be an apocalyptic catastrophe. Placing his hopes in those rigid, step-by-step imperial bureaucrats was no different from trying to rely on a straw for survival in the middle of a storm. He had to forge a force that truly belonged to him both for himself and for humanity. That was why investing in NPCs and cultivating his own legion was not merely a choice, but an absolute necessity. What was more, NPC loyalty was far more dependable than that of players, who could be swayed at any moment by profit or fear. Players might betray him, shrink back, or flee for their lives at the most critical moment. But the NPC warriors he personally nurtured so long as the contract remained would never abandon him. Investing in players might end in total loss. But every resource spent on NPCs would one day become the firmest shield and the sharpest spear in his hands. After taking one final look at his abundant gains, Daniel closed the exchange interface. Exit the dungeon event. Whoosh dash. A flash of white light passed, and Daniel's figure reappeared beside the portal in Skyhold. After returning to the ducal residence in Polaris City, the first thing he did was take out those 7 flight mastery fragments. The 7 fragments slowly floated above his palm, radiating a pale golden light. Fine chains of light faintly linked them together. Synthesize.
Ding.
You are synthesizing Flight Arcana Core Supreme Grade. This operation requires the secondary profession of Legendary Grade Engineer. Confirm? Confirm. 1 minute later, golden light burst forth. The 7 fragments fused together within the radiance, transforming into a fist-sized golden core. Ancient runes covered its surface, while streams of light swirled inside it, as though it contained the very essence of the wind itself.
Ding.
Synthesis successful. Obtained Flight Arcana Core Supreme Grade. Flight Arcana Core Supreme Grade. Type: Wing Equipment Enhancement Core. Effect: can be fused with wing equipment of legendary grade or above, greatly enhancing the performance of the wing equipment. Description: a core containing ancient flight arcana. Once fused with wing equipment, it grants the wearer a transcendent power of flight beyond mortal limits. Daniel took out Black Dragon Wing. This piece of supreme grade equipment had accompanied him for a long time, yet its potential had still not been fully unearthed. Now, it was finally time for it to evolve once more. He activated the Flight Arcana Core.
BZZZ dash.
A dazzling burst of golden light erupted from the wings, illuminating the entire room. Within the radiance, Black Dragon Wing slowly began to transform. Golden patterns emerged across its originally black scales, sharper bony spikes extended from its edges, and its wingspan expanded from 10 meters to 15 meters. Every feather shimmered with a black-gold luster, and arcs of lightning flickered faintly across the surface.
Ding.
Fusion successful. Black Dragon Wing has evolved into Eternal Black King, Supreme Grade. Daniel raised a brow and immediately opened its status panel. Eternal Black King, Supreme Grade. Type: Wing Equipment Bound. Additional effects: Eternal Wingspan. Upon activation, spreads its wings. Flight speed plus 8,000%, consumes no MP high-speed cruise. In long-distance flight mode, speed becomes 500% of the character's current agility stat, consuming 200 MP per second. Black King Barrier. Once activated, the wings can be used to block damage from the front. Maximum damage capacity, 20 million points, reparable. Undying structure. The wing equipment has infinite durability and can never be destroyed. If struck by an attack exceeding its damage capacity, the wings will automatically retract. Description: a legendary pair of wings fused with ancient flight arcana. The black gold feathers flow with the power of a black dragon. The instant you spread these wings, you become the sovereign of the skies. After reading its attributes, Daniel could no longer suppress the smile on his lips. Although this equipment was still only Supreme Grade, one had to know that even among Supreme Grade items, there were enormous differences. And those differences could truly be described as worlds apart. For example, Supreme Grade gear produced from boosting ordinary equipment generally had rather average stats. But compared with high-tier gear that already possessed special effects and skills, the latter could greatly expand the upper limits of its inherent attributes. The current Eternal Black King had received a tremendous enhancement. Its flight speed had risen to 8,000%, its damage capacity had reached 20 million, and it could even negate overflow damage. And one had to remember, these were only its additional enhancements. Its original attribute bonuses and skills had not been overwritten at all. It could be said that this pair of wings was no longer merely a piece of equipment, but a mobile fortress. He immediately equipped it. Prompt: you have equipped Eternal Black King. Looking again at his current equipment and attribute bonuses, Daniel felt a profound sense of security rise within him. At this rate of growth, perhaps he really could overturn all the destined cataclysmic endings when that day finally came. Daniel calmed himself and turned his gaze toward Karo Dion, who stood behind him. Next, he planned to bring Karo Dion back to Ironforge. There were still 50 million Legion warriors and tens of millions of NPC civilians waiting there for him to receive. With a thought, the black gold wings unfurled behind him. The 15-meter wings spread like a canopy over the sky, each feather reflecting a cold metallic sheen, with golden arcs of lightning dancing along the edges. "Let's go," he said to Carodion. Carodion nodded, silently expanding his form and following close behind. The two figures tore across the heavens, racing toward Iron Forge like bolts of light. Iron Forge. The moment Daniel landed, he immediately summoned Hudson, Victor, and Alan. He handed most of the resources he had obtained from this dungeon run over to the three of them. 80% of the EXP cards, skill books, companion eggs, and all of the special unit class awakening scrolls. Use these supplies to train an elite legion. Daniel's voice was calm, yet left no room for doubt. "I want to see a true iron army of humankind." Hudson took the inventory list, and his hands trembled slightly. 50 million gold-grade warriors, tens of millions of civilians, hundreds of thousands of skill books, hundreds of thousands of companion eggs. Even across the entire human empire, no lord could have produced such a staggering amount of resources so casually. "Please rest assured, Your Grace." Hudson gave a solemn bow. "I will not fail you." At that moment, however, Alan stepped forward, his expression somewhat grave. "Your Grace, there is something I must report." "Speak." At present, the scout squads of the Doom Legion have spread throughout the territories of the non-human races. We have discovered signs that they are gathering large armies. Daniel's gaze sharpened. "Which races?" "The coalition consists of 6 races: goblins, beastfolk, dwarves, dark elves, mammoths, and baimen." Alan spoke in a deep voice. Daniel nodded. "It seems the Empire is about to undergo a bloody cleansing." "Exactly." Alan let out a sigh. "Right now, the entire Empire is already in chaos." "Oh, and after you left, the military headquarters in Luminera sent someone over with a scroll. They said they need your assistance in a certain matter." Daniel raised a brow slightly. It seemed this matter was anything but simple. Even the military had come knocking at his door. "Give me the scroll." Alan took a parchment scroll from his robes and respectfully handed it over with both hands. Daniel accepted it and unrolled it.
Ding.
"Do you wish to accept the hidden quest, Plague Fall, epic grade?" The instant he heard the system prompt, Daniel's expression shifted slightly. This quest, he remembered it. In his previous lives, this hidden version quest had only appeared 2 months after the server opened. According to players who had posted about it on the forums, this quest would only be issued to the player who ranked highest in current faction standing, contribution points, and similar metrics. And now, even this had appeared ahead of schedule. Without the slightest hesitation, he clicked confirm. Prompt: "You have accepted the quest, Plague Fall, epic grade. Please check the details in the quest log." Daniel opened the quest panel. Plague Fall, epic grade.
Quest objectives.
Investigate the strange plague spreading throughout the Empire. Develop a potion capable of curing the plague. Trace the source of the plague and eliminate the mastermind behind it.
Quest description.
Not long ago, an extremely terrifying plague appeared within the Empire. It is spreading across the entire Empire with unstoppable momentum. Preliminary research by the Alchemists Guild shows that this plague is exceptionally difficult to deal with. A massive number of civilians have already been infected, and the death toll is rising sharply. Please develop a countermeasure as soon as possible, stop the plague from spreading, and completely resolve this disaster. Time limit: long term. The quest rewards: a large amount of contribution points, a large amount of gold coins, a large amount of merit points, Imperial popular support, human contribution. As Daniel looked at the quest, his brows drew tightly together. In his previous life, he had read quite a few guides and knew that the source of the plague was a cemetery corrupted by darkness. And the final boss of this quest was an early-stage legendary grade monster spawned by the power of a dark god. Legendary grade. Daniel took a deep breath. Before entering the dungeon, he might not have been a match for a legendary grade powerhouse. But now his strength had increased several-fold. In his previous lives, players who wanted to clear this quest had to rely on legendary grade NPC experts from the Empire. As a result, no one had ever obtained the quest's most complete system rewards. But if this time, he could solo kill that early-stage legendary grade boss, then the perfect grade reward would be within easy reach. And the value of a perfect grade reward was beyond estimation. Daniel opened his skill panel. Serpent's Thunder Cell. The duration of this skill depended entirely on the caster's MP and stamina, and with the support of Infinite Grail and countless potions, Daniel's values in both categories were practically inexhaustible. That meant he could maintain Serpent's Thunder Cell without interruption forever. A domain that never ended, covered an entire city, and dealt damage equal to 100% of his attack power every second. Just imagining that scene was enough to make one's scalp go numb. Then Daniel thought of another skill Wind's Embrace. 10 minutes of absolute stasis, combined with the endless output of Serpent's Thunder Cell. If those two skills are used together. A cold curve lifted the corner of his lips. Solo killing an early-stage legendary grade boss will be more than enough. Daniel closed his skill panel, activated Eternal Black King, and flew toward Dragon Slumber. The black gold wings traced a dazzling arc beneath the sunlight, and in the blink of an eye, he vanished into the horizon. Dragon Slumber. A figure descended from the sky and landed steadily at the city gates. Prompt: You have discovered Dragon Slumber. Contribution points plus 1,000. Daniel looked over the city. The streets were nearly empty. The few pedestrians passing by all wore thick masks, their faces filled with fear and unease. A suffocating atmosphere hung over the entire city like dark storm clouds. Following the memories from his previous life, Daniel arrived at the entrance of an alchemy shop. Inside the shop, a woman in a dark blue alchemist's robe was staring blankly at the alchemy array before her. The materials within the array had not changed in the slightest, which meant the refinement had failed yet again. As one of the Empire's very few black gold grade alchemists, Elena felt a deep sense of defeat. Alchemy followed the principle of equivalent exchange. If nothing changed within the alchemy array, that meant the energy could not be converted and the potion refinement had failed. So, it failed again after all? Elena's eyes reddened slightly. She thought of the civilians struggling on the brink of death under the plague, and her chest felt so heavy she could barely breathe. She had exhausted everything she had learned in her lifetime, yet still could not refine a potion capable of curing the plague. So it's true, just as my mentor said. Only a legendary grade alchemist can refine a cure for this plague. She lowered her head, her hands clenched tightly into fists. I'm not willing to accept this. I want to try one more time. Just then, knock, knock, knock. A sound came from the door. Elena froze for a moment, then hurriedly put on a mask and opened the shop door. Standing outside was a young mage. He wore a silver-white robe, with a starlit longbow slung across his back. His features were cool and refined, his gaze deep and tranquil. Good day. Daniel gave a slight nod. I am Faustus, here under Imperial orders to investigate the plague. Elena looked at him curiously, then stepped aside to let him in. After the two of them sat down, Elena slowly began to speak. The source of this plague lies in the dragon graveyard outside Dragon Slumber. She paused, a flicker of fear passing across her face. At first, only one of the gravekeepers in the cemetery was infected. Later, even the priest who treated him caught it as well. In less than half a month, the plague had spread throughout the entirety of Dragon Slumber. After that, large numbers of Imperial citizens in the surrounding cities were infected too. By last month, the plague had already reached Galehold, and by now, I fear it may have spread across the whole empire. She let out a sigh, her voice slightly choked with emotion. Setting aside the other regions, in Dragon Slumber alone, tens of thousands of Imperial citizens have died from it within just 1 month. Daniel fell silent for a moment before asking, what are the characteristics of this plague? Elena forcibly suppressed the grief in her heart. This plague can spread through any medium, and it can also attach itself to all kinds of living creatures. Its infectivity is terrifyingly strong. Once someone is infected, a fiendish seed will be born inside the patient's body. That seed will continue to devour the host's life until the host dies. As for where those fiendish seeds go in the end, we still do not know. Daniel listened carefully to the end.
Ding.
You have completed phase 1 of the quest. Investigate the source of the plague. He rose to his feet and bade Elena farewell. Before leaving, he turned back to look at her and said calmly, please believe this. The dawn of mankind will surely come. Elena nodded heavily, but the gloom in her heart did not lessen in the slightest. After leaving the shop, Daniel revealed a composed expression. Back in his previous lives, the formula for a potion that could cure this plague had already been posted on the game forums. In order to complete this quest, Daniel had deliberately memorized that formula during his second life. It was worth mentioning that the formula had originally been developed by the players together with Elena, but now he no longer needed to go through all those tedious side quests. With the formula already in hand, he could simply brew it directly. He unfurled the Eternal Black King and flew toward Luminera. Luminera, Alchemist's Guild. Inside the guild hall, the attendant saw Daniel and immediately hurried forward respectfully. Your Grace the Duke, how may I be of service? I want to learn the secondary profession of alchemist. Of course. The attendant smiled. This is your secondary profession. Normally, the introductory fee would be 10 gold coins, but for an honored guest such as yourself, you need only pay 1 silver coin. Prompt, spend 1 silver coin to purchase basic alchemist principles. Note, at your current level, you may only learn 2 secondary professions at the same time. Yes. With a wave of the attendant's hand, a golden light appeared before Daniel. Immediately afterward, Daniel decisively sold the introductory manual to the guild shop.
Ding.
You have successfully sold a secondary class introductory skill book to the Doom Guild, triggering millionfold boost.
Ding.
You have obtained 1 gold coin, and you have received legendary grade alchemist arcana. The corner of Daniel's mouth lifted slightly. I need to use your study chamber. Certainly, Your Grace. You may use the highest grade study chamber completely free of charge. The attendant bowed respectfully. Daniel nodded and strode into the interior of the guild. Inside the study chamber. Half an hour later, Daniel had successfully completed all of the arcane study.
Ding.
Your alchemist class rank has been raised to legendary grade. A brilliant golden radiance erupted from Daniel's body, illuminating the entire study chamber in dazzling splendor. Legendary grade alchemist. Effects. Success rate for all alchemy plus 100%. Guaranteed success. The quality of all alchemical products is at least black gold grade, can craft legendary grade potions, and special items alchemy time reduced by 95%. Description. The supreme realm of alchemy, where one thought can turn stone into gold. In the entire history of the Empire, No more than 3 people have ever reached this level. Looking at that line of description, Daniel could no longer suppress the smile on his face. Legendary grade alchemist. This meant that from now on, any potion he brewed would succeed without fail, and at a minimum, it would be of black gold grade quality. Now that his alchemist class had successfully advanced, Daniel did not hesitate any longer. He immediately followed the potion formula from memory, purchased the required materials through the study chamber panel, and placed them all into the transmutation array. Prompt: brew unnamed potion? Yes. The transmutation array lit up, and all of the materials vanished in an instant. A moment later, a potion glowing with pale golden light appeared within the array. Prompt: you have successfully brewed unnamed potion. Alchemist class EXP plus 100. Prompt: please name the potion you have just brewed. Dawn. Daniel answered, without the slightest hesitation.
Ding.
You have named the potion Dawn.
Ding.
Obtained Dawn Elixir, black gold grade. ×1. Daniel took the potion out of the transmutation array. Dawn Elixir, black gold grade. Effect: after consumption, it can perfectly cure a certain strange plague and all of its variants. Description: this potion was developed by the Imperial Duke and legendary grade alchemist, Faustus, in order to resolve the Empire's plague disaster. Holding the Dawn Elixir in his hand, a cold glint flashed through Daniel's eyes. Of the quest's 3 major objectives, he had already completed 2: investigate the source of the plague and develop the cure. Only the final one remained: eradicate the mastermind behind it all. That legendary grade beginner-level monster that had been forcibly nurtured by the Dark Council. Daniel had no intention of relying on the strength of the Empire's legendary grade powerhouses, as the players had in his previous lives. He would act personally. Legendary grade. He put away the potion, a chilly arc curving at the corner of his lips. Let me see just how capable you really are. Daniel stored the pale golden potion in his robes and immediately set off for the Ministry of War. Inside the Ministry of War's main hall, candlelight illuminated the broad stone chamber with a warm brightness. Minister Castle stood with his hands behind his back, pacing before the long table. The sound of his boots striking the stone floor was hurried and uneven. This military minister, who was usually as steady as a mountain, now resembled an old wolf trapped in a cage, restless with anxiety. Ahem. Daniel stopped at the entrance and let out a light cough. Castle spun around sharply. In his weary eyes, light burst forth at once. He closed the distance in 3 quick strides, his voice brimming with barely restrained urgency. Your Grace the Duke. Has there been progress? Daniel took out the potion from his robes and handed it to him. The golden liquid flowed slowly inside the glass vial like sunlight made solid. A miracle cure for this plague,
he said briefly.
Castle received the potion with both hands, moving as gently as though he were cradling a star that might shatter at any moment. He lowered his head and stared at the light inside the vial. His lips trembled slightly, and only after a long while did he find his voice again. I knew it. So long as your Grace takes action, there is nothing that cannot be done. Daniel then pulled a parchment filled with the formula from his inventory and laid it flat upon the table. The writing on it was neat and clear. Every step, every ingredient, had been marked down in exact detail. The Ministry of War can test the potion on infected patients. This is the complete formula. Castle looked at him with gratitude and let out a long sigh. In that sigh was not only the relief of a burden lifted, but also profound respect. With your Grace here, it is truly a blessing for the human race. Castle paused, and his expression suddenly turned grave. It's just that, the Empire's investigation has revealed that the mastermind behind this plague is a fallen mage named Harland. His hideout lies deep within the graveyard outside Dragon Slumber. I hope that your Grace can join forces with the Ministry of War's experts and slay this scourge upon mankind together. Prompt: you have obtained the clue for Phase 3 of the quest. Proceed to the Dragon Graveyard and kill LV-120 Fallen Mage Harland, legendary grade. I'd be happy to handle it. Daniel nodded, his tone so calm it sounded as though he were speaking of something utterly ordinary. But I alone will be enough. He turned and made to leave at once. If the Ministry of War's powerhouses came along, they would only drag down the mission rating. He had no interest in taking that kind of loss. Your Grace, please wait. Castle's voice came from behind him, unable to hide the anxiety within it. To create an evil spirit plague capable of covering the entire empire, the enemy's strength is surely far beyond that of ordinary powerhouses. Does your Grace truly not need any assistance? Daniel glanced back at him, a faint smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Leave it to me. Before the words had even fully fallen, his figure had already vanished from the spot. Castle stared at the empty stone floor in silence for a moment. Then he shook his head, turned around, and ordered his subordinates to begin testing the medicine, while also making arrangements for mass production. Dragon Graveyard. Gray-white mist shrouded the entire wasteland, like the final breath exhaled by the earth itself. The moment Daniel appeared in this land of deathly stillness, a cold system notification rang in his ears. Prompt: you have entered the special zone, Curtain of Darkness. Current all attributes minus 50%. You have gained the negative effect, Shadow Erosion. 3 active skills are randomly sealed. You have gained the negative effect, Nightmare Mirage. Max HP minus 50%, max MP minus 50%. Daniel's expression remained unchanged. These curse-like debuffs would have been enough to leave any ordinary player unable to take a single step forward, but to him, they were nothing more than a passing breeze. He raised a hand, and a pale golden halo spread out from his palm like the first ray of dawn breaking across the horizon, sweeping away the gray mist around him. Faded purification. The suffocating curses vanished into the golden light as if they had never existed at all. At that very moment,
Boom.
a muffled peal of thunder suddenly exploded through the void, shaking the entire wasteland. Daniel looked up. The space ahead began to distort, and a pitch-black vortex appeared out of nowhere, as though someone had torn open a rift in the curtain of the world itself. The vortex spun faster and faster, greedily devouring the surrounding air, light, and even sound itself. Soon, the wind died, the mist dispersed, and even the sound of a heartbeat seemed to be swallowed by that endless darkness. A figure wearing a black mask and holding a jet-black staff stepped slowly out of the vortex. His entire body was wrapped in dark robes. With every step he took upon the void, ripples of darkness spread outward, as though he were walking across solidified night itself. Walking through the void, the mark of a legendary grade powerhouse. Daniel narrowed his eyes and quietly cast a detection spell. Fallen Mage, Harland, LV 120, legendary grade. HP, 20 million. Attack, 700,000 to 1 million. Defense, 500,000 to 800,000. Skills, all dark element magic, evil spirit barrier, god grade spell damage, immortality, passive trait. Immortal singularity, 5. Immortal trait, a divine power condensed from immortal singularity, the insurmountable gulf between legendary grade beings and mortals. Description: Fallen Mage Harland, a once-in-several-centuries genius of the dark magic lineage. His mentor is the legendary grade peak dark element powerhouse, with the highest bounty on the Empire's most wanted list. Though still young, Harland has already stepped into the ranks of the continent's great powers, and is absolutely not an opponent current players can challenge. Daniel quickly scanned Harland's information, a faint frown appearing on his brow. Immortal Singularity determined the upper limit of a legendary grade powerhouse's strength. It could allow the 4 core attributes to break beyond mortal limits, and it could also grant its holder regeneration, longevity, and even immortality itself. Put simply, every point of Immortal Singularity was an extra life. At the same time, Harland on the opposite side was also sizing up this uninvited guest. Behind the mask, his eyes held the same contempt a cat might show a mouse. Are all the Empire's people dead already? Harland's voice was hoarse and low, like mutterings echoing out of a tomb. That they would actually send an ant here to die? Daniel curled his lip. The easiest flaw for young geniuses to fall into is arrogance. His figure flashed Godspeed. In the next instant, he was already standing less than 10 meters in front of Harland. Stellar wrath rose, and the vibration of the bowstring sounded like a silent judgment. Wind's embrace. Invisible power of wind surged in from all directions, binding Harland firmly in place. The winds seemed to come alive, transforming into countless transparent chains that wrapped around his limbs, throat, and waist, leaving him unable to move even a single finger. Serpent's thunder cell.
Boom.
The sky suddenly exploded. Dense storm clouds formed in an instant, while purple lightning churned and roared within them like an enraged primordial beast. In the next second, countless bolts of lightning poured down from the clouds, exploding above Harland's head and transforming into tens of thousands of thunder serpents that wildly lashed toward his body. Crackle dash. Purple electric light illuminated the entire wasteland as bright as day. The thunder serpents exploded across Harland's body, each strike carrying enough force to tear through iron and stone. Minus 6,986,648. Minus 6,621,286. Minus 7,346,546. Tens of thousands of thunder serpents exploded against Harland every second, filling the air with a dense storm of damage numbers. At this rate, his enormous HP bar would be completely emptied in less than 3 seconds. And yet Harland still stood there. Daniel was not surprised. He cast detection once more. Immortal Singularity. 4 points. Just as expected. In that single instant just now, Harland had consumed 1 point of Immortal Singularity and forcibly endured what should have been fatal damage. That drop of Immortal Singularity was like an invisible shield, shutting death out beyond the gate. This was the most terrifying aspect of legendary grade powerhouses. Every point of Immortal Singularity was an extra life. Although there was no real difficulty here, Daniel still did not let his guard down. The arrows in his hand never stopped. Serpent's Thunder Cell had no time limit. As long as he had enough MP and stamina, he could maintain it forever. And those were precisely the 2 things he lacked the least. Harland was pinned firmly in place by Wind's embrace. Under the dual effects of silence and paralysis, he could neither cast spells nor move. He was like a statue nailed upon an altar, able only to watch helplessly as the endless thunder tore through his body again and again. He frantically drove the little Immortal Singularity he had left within his body, using it over and over to resist the fatal damage. 4, 3, 2, 1. With every point consumed, his face turned a shade paler. It was a despair deeper than death itself. To watch, helplessly, as one's lives were stripped away one after another, yet have no power to resist. Damn it. Harland ground his teeth, his voice filled with humiliation and unwillingness. Am I, a legendary great existence, the Empire's most brilliant dark mage, really going to fall today at the hands of this despicable wretch? No one answered him. There was only the endless thunder, descending upon him without pause. He then turned his gaze toward the other two values.
Imperial morale.
The will of the people converges into the surging current of national destiny. Wherever the people's hearts incline, that great river rushes forward with unstoppable force. The fiercer the popular will burns, the stronger the Empire's fortune becomes. This is the very foundation upon which the Empire stands. Human merit. The blood of the present forges the road of those yet to come. Every contribution leaves its mark upon the long river of time. Daniel stared at the 2 lines of description on the panel, a trace of surprise flashing through his eyes. He was already deeply familiar with the path of fortune. It was one of the most mysterious and unfathomable powers in the world. Those with overwhelming fortune could stumble upon the entrance to a hidden realm just by walking down the road, or casually flip through an old book and discover a long-lost forbidden curse. Put another way, their luck stat was completely maxed out. In his previous lives, he had seen people favored by fate, one miraculous encounter after another, rare gear falling right into their hands. And as for human merit, that was something even weightier than fortune. When one's contributions became great enough, one's name would appear in the Empire's textbooks, listed alongside the sages and worthies of ancient times. Generation after generation of students would learn of his deeds in the classroom and know that once, in the long river of history, there had been a person who had done something extraordinary for humankind. And if his contributions rose even higher, statues of him would be erected in the Empire's public squares, to be revered for all ages. That was not empty fame, but true immortality through remembrance. Daniel took a deep breath and suppressed the stirring in his heart. This time, he had profited immensely. At that moment, Castle took out a rolled parchment map from his desk and slowly spread it across the table. The map was densely marked with cities and strongholds, but at the northern frontier, a blood-red mark stood out with startling clarity. A report arrived today from the Empire's Supreme War Command, he said, his voice sinking lower. The allied forces of the 6 races, the beastfolk, dwarves, elves, goblins, bymen, and mammoths, have already reached the northern border, with Winterhold as the point of their advance. He paused before continuing. Although it will not be easy for the non-human races to break through the fortress's defenses, your grace would still do well to make preparations early. If the Empire later calls upon the various dukes and marquises across the land to send troops against the non-human races, at least you will not be caught unprepared. Daniel understood what Castle meant. This was not a quest only, a well-intentioned warning. The Empire was very confident in its own strength and was not worried about an invasion by the non-human races. But in the event of an unforeseen turn, it was always better to prepare early. Daniel gave Castle a deep look. Such top-secret intelligence would never have been shared with him if their favorability had not already reached the maximum. After saying farewell to Castle, Daniel quickly left the Ministry of War. He raised his head and looked toward the sky. Dark clouds were churning in the direction of the northern frontier, like a black wall stretching beyond sight. It seems I'll have to speed up my preparations. Luminera, Bureau of Currency Administration. This building, constructed entirely from white marble, stood in one of the most prosperous districts of Luminera. 2 statues holding ledgers stood before its gates, symbolizing wealth and order. Merchants, nobles, and adventurers passed in and out in an endless stream, each wearing an expression of pious reverence toward money. Daniel's arrival immediately stirred the entire building. Your Grace the Duke. A middle-aged NPC dressed in ornate robes hurried forward, his face overflowing with respectful smiles. He was the minister in charge of this department. Richard. How may we be of service? I want to establish a commercial bank. Daniel went straight to the point. Richard's eyes lit up, and the smile on his face became even more obsequious. Your Grace's support for Luminera's development is plain for all the Empire to see. I can waive your registration fee. Then he changed his tone and added cautiously. However, under Imperial law, establishing a commercial bank requires a reserve deposit of 100 billion gold coins.
Ding.
Would you like to pay 100 billion gold coins as reserve capital to register a commercial bank? Daniel's expression remained calm. He glanced at his current wealth. Over 30 trillion gold coins in total. Confirm. Prompt. Reserve capital successfully paid. Please name your bank. Polaris Bank. Daniel answered without hesitation.
Prompt. Bank Polaris Bank successfully registered.
This bank has automatically been placed under your ownership. Daniel then injected another 1 trillion gold coins into the bank and recruited a group of top-tier commercial NPCs to staff it. At the same time, he developed several wealth management products aimed specifically at players. There was nothing particularly special about the products themselves, but their greatest feature was this: extremely high returns, extremely low risk, and incredible value. His real purpose, however, was not to engage in economics at all. He was here to make use of the selling permission mechanic. As long as players purchased these investment products, the profits generated would trigger millionfold boost. After all, reviving a legendary-grade human powerhouse required 1 trillion gold coins just to use Banner of Valor to gather the remnant soul, and then another roughly 1 trillion gold coins to revive them with Seraphic Revival. Altogether, that came to a full 3 trillion. Although Daniel himself had absolutely no shortage of money, being able to make money while also benefiting the broader player community, that was his true intention. He opened the guild interface and quickly posted an announcement. Doom Guild announcement. Guild Master Faustus has established Polaris Bank. Wealth management services are now available. Guild members may purchase exclusive financial products with generous returns. Limited slots available, first come, first served. The guild channel instantly exploded. Holy shit, the guild master opened a bank? Wealth management products. How are the returns? Let me see. Holy shit, this return rate is insane. These financial products are only open to guild members right now. Oh my god. The guild master treats guild members way too well. This is unbelievable. I feel like I'm about to achieve financial freedom. I need to tell my friends who haven't joined the guild yet. Ahem. Not that I'm trying to show off. Bye. I'm putting all my savings into these products. Doesn't this feel like a guaranteed loss for the bank? What exactly is the guild master trying to do? Does he seriously have so much money he has nowhere left to spend it? I want to experience what it feels like to have more money than I can spend too. Guild master is invincible. Stop talking and move, brothers. The first batch of products has limited slots. If you don't buy now, they'll all be gone. For a time, countless players opened the banking interface and began frantically purchasing the financial products. At the same time, a continuous stream of system notifications rang out in Daniel's ears.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Received 10,000 gold coins.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Received 200,000 gold coins.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Received 3 million gold coins.
King.
He directly turned off the repeated notifications. Once the bank opened for business, there was only one thing left for him to do: lie back and collect money. At the same time, the returns from these financial products could also greatly strengthen the levels and combat power of the guild members. This too was part of Daniel's acceleration plan, to pour vast sums of gold into the guild and help its overall strength rise as quickly as possible. With millionfold boost, there was no scenario in which he could lose. With the bank matter handled, Daniel's business in Luminera was temporarily at an end. He unfurled the Eternal Black King and flew toward the portal leading to Polaris City.
Boom.
With the final point of immortal singularity exhausted, Harlan's body finally exploded amid the endless thunderstorm, bursting into fragments that filled the sky. Those fragments burned in the lightning, broke apart, and turned to ashes, leaving not even the slightest trace behind.
Ding.
You have slain the legendary grade powerhouse, Fallen Mage Harlan, and gained plus 50 billion EXP. Prompt: your current EXP pool is full. Overflow EXP has been automatically stored.
Ding.
Plunder effect triggered. The enemy's dropped items have been automatically transferred to your inventory. Prompt: you have completed the quest Plaguefall, epic grade. Quest rating: perfect.
Ding.
Obtained Purification Elixir, epic grade, ×1.
Ding.
Obtained Judgment Elixir, epic grade, ×1.
Ding.
Obtained Intermediate Divinity Fragment, legendary grade, special item, unsellable, ×1. A slight flicker passed through Daniel's eyes as he listened to the system notifications. Of the 3 dropped items, 2 were actually potions. That was rather unexpected. Still, potions could trigger the bonus effect of the Eternal Ring and become permanent effects, so it counted as a pleasant surprise. As for that divinity fragment, that was the real prize. A powerhouse who had only just stepped into the threshold of legendary grade had actually dropped an intermediate divinity fragment. By any standard, this was an enormous profit. Divinity fragments were the core material used to synthesize a complete divinity. It took 100 fragments to form a single complete divinity. And a complete divinity was precisely the key item needed for a player's class advancement quest after reaching level 200. The more divinity consumed during class advancement, and the higher its rank, the more terrifying the strength gained after advancement would be. He put the fragment into his inventory, then took out the 2 potions and sold them to the guild.
Ding.
You have successfully sold Judgment Elixir and Purification Elixir to the Doom Guild, receiving 2 copper coins.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Please choose quantity boost / quality boost. Quality boost.
Ding.
Congratulations. You have received 2 gold coins. Congratulations. You have obtained Sacred Judgment Elixir, Supreme Grade, and Holy Light Purification Elixir, Supreme Grade. Delight stirred in Daniel's heart as he opened the potion panel to inspect them. Sacred Judgment Elixir, Legendary Grade. Effect: after consumption, damage dealt to dark-aligned creatures is increased tenfold. Duration: 12 hours. Description: when darkness shrouds the world, you shall be the light that tears it apart and passes judgment upon evil. Daniel's breathing paused for the briefest moment. 10 times damage. After drinking this potion, his damage output against dark-aligned creatures would soar to over 50 million. Those dark calamities destined to descend in the future. Those shadow creatures that would blink at the skies. Those fiends that would devour the light. With a tenfold damage bonus, they would no longer be invincible nightmares. He tipped his head back and drank the potion in one gulp. The golden liquid slid down his throat, like molten sunlight flowing through his veins. Prompt: you have consumed Sacred Judgment Elixir, Supreme Grade.
Ding.
Talent: Eternal Ring, triggered. The potion's effect has been converted into a permanent effect. He then looked at the other potion in his hand. Holy Light Purification Elixir, Supreme Grade. Effect: after consumption, grants the continuous ability to remove all negative statuses and toxins. Duration: 12 hours. Description: dispel all evil, cleanse away every burden, remain pure and clear in body, forever free of curses. The corner of Daniel's lips lifted slightly. Although he already had plenty of purification methods on him and could long since ignore debuffs altogether, an extra safeguard was always welcome. From this moment onward, no curse, toxin, or negative status would be able to remain on him for more than an instant. He drank the potion down in a single swallow. Prompt: you have consumed Holy Light Purification Elixir, Supreme Grade.
Ding.
Talent: Eternal Ring, triggered. The potion's effect has been converted into a permanent effect. Daniel put away the potions and turned his gaze toward the place where Harland had fallen. A few scorched scraps of cloth lay scattered across the blackened ground, with thin wisps of smoke curling upward into the night wind. Though this fallen mage had only been at the very bottom among legendary grade existences, he had still been a true legendary grade powerhouse. Daniel had no intention of reviving him, but keeping the corpse might prove useful for something else. He spread the Eternal Black King and descended to the place where Harland had fallen. But the instant he landed, a cold and sinister aura rose from the ruins. The remaining fragments of Harland's corpse trembled slightly, and an aged voice emerged from within them, like a murmur drifting up from an unimaginably distant abyss. Was it you who killed Harland? The voice was hoarse and low, carrying an unsettling pressure. You have chosen to become an enemy of the Shadow Council. Have you considered the consequences? Daniel frowned faintly and said coldly, if I'm not mistaken, you're Harland's mentor, aren't you? A peak legendary grade powerhouse of the dark magic lineage, the one with the highest bounty on the Empire's wanted list. The voice in the ruins fell silent for a moment, then turned into a cold laugh. So what? Nothing much. Daniel spoke calmly, in a tone as though he were merely stating a fact long since set in stone. I just wanted to tell you that you're going to die too. And when you do, it'll be ugly. He was telling the truth. This peak powerhouse of the Shadow Council before him would, in the end, still be suppressed by humanity's strongest. Viewed from a higher plane, his death was only a matter of time. The voice fell silent for a long while. Then a burst of deranged laughter exploded from the ruins, shaking even the scattered stones. Ha ha ha, sooner or later, you will understand that everything you are doing for the Empire now is utterly futile. The cycle of rebirth never ends. Why should death be feared? When I die, it will be the day I enter the Divine Kingdom. The moment the words fell,
boom,
Harland's remains exploded into utter ruin in an instant, leaving behind not even a single grain of dust. Daniel gazed at that barren patch of scorched earth, his eyes cold as frost. He paid no heed to the wild ravings of that Shadow Council mentor. He only knew one thing. He had to make haste in laying the groundwork for mankind's future. No matter what kind of disasters awaited ahead, he would fear none of them. Time to go back and turn in the quest. He murmured softly, then spread his wings and shot into the sky. Luminera, Ministry of War. A black shadow dived down from the clouds and landed steadily in the square before the Ministry of War. When the surrounding soldiers saw who it was, they immediately straightened their backs, placed their right fists against their chests, and looked at him with eyes full of reverence. Your Grace. Daniel nodded and strode into the great hall of the ministry. Castle had already noticed his arrival. He looked Daniel up and down several times, and only after confirming that there was not even a single wound on him did he finally let out a long breath of relief. Daniel smiled faintly and briefly recounted what had happened with Harland and Harland's mentor. After hearing it all, Castle's eyes filled with astonishment. To think that your Grace was able to slay a legendary grade powerhouse alone, truly extraordinary. He paused, his expression growing grave once more. As for the one behind the scenes, your Grace need not worry too much. The Empire has its own ways of dealing with him. He waved a hand broadly.
Ding.
You have submitted the quest Plaguefall. Epic grade. Quest rating, perfect. Obtained rewards, Immortal Singularity Fragment, legendary grade, ×1. Plus 1 billion gold coins, plus 1 billion merit points, plus 50,000 human merit, plus 100,000 imperial morale. Daniel was briefly stunned. These rewards could only be described as top tier. Immortal Singularity Fragment was the core material used to synthesize Immortal Singularity. Gather 100 of them, and they could be condensed into 1 point of Immortal Singularity. And 1 point of Immortal Singularity meant 1 chance to negate death. Moreover, Immortal Singularity could also be channeled into offensive skills, greatly increasing their power. If he had possessed Immortal Singularity during that battle, an opponent on Harland's level would never have lasted more than a few exchanges. Polaris City. No sooner had Daniel settled into the Lord's Manor than a blood-red world announcement resounded across the entire world of Stellar. Server-wide announcement. The 6 races bespoke, dwarves, elves, goblins, biomen, and mammoths have declared the formation of the Sixfold Alliance and officially declared war on the human empire. Declaration of the 6 races. The humans know no justice. They crossed our borders, burned our city-states, slaughtered our people, and seized our lands. Their hands are drenched in blood. Today, our 6 races stand shoulder to shoulder. We seek not conquest, but only the return of all that was taken from its rightful owners. The tyranny of humankind shall fall. Their walls shall crumble. Their rule shall come to an end. By blood and blade, we swear to fight until the final shadow has faded. Server-wide announcement. A major version event has now begun. Players who participate in this event may earn massive rewards. All players, prepare yourselves. The announcement rang out 3 times in succession. Crimson text flashed before every player's eyes, like a declaration of war written in blood. The world channel instantly exploded. Another version storyline? Why is it advancing so fast? By the gods, I'm only level 20 and I already have to take part in a major version event. I don't think this has anything to do with our levels. It's because someone has already reached that stage. Faustus is just completely insane. This feels a little rough. 1 against 6? That's a headache. What's there to be afraid of? During the Battle of Desperation, Faustus slaughtered hundreds of millions of players and tens of billions of monsters, all by himself. How could these non-human races be any stronger? You're underestimating them. All 6 major races have huge numbers of legendary-grade powerhouses. Did that secret realm even have legendary-grade enemies? Hiss, if that's true, then this really is huge. It's definitely a serious challenge, but still. There's no way players are going to be the main force in a war on this scale, unless you're Faustus. Fair point. Standing atop the high platform of the Lord's Manor, Daniel gazed toward the roiling storm clouds gathering in the northern sky. A faint smile curved at his lips. With the main armies of the non-human races concentrated in the north, this was actually good news for him. That vast stretch of the Iron Hammer Plains would become his hunting ground. Daniel was not at all surprised by the Sixfold Alliance's declaration of war. Scouts from the non-human races had already been making restless moves along the border. Now that their armies stood beneath Everwinter City, all they had done was tear away the final veil. War had only ever been a matter of time. He took a seat at the head of the hall, pondered for a moment, then opened the mission editor. His fingers traced one command after another through the air, every parameter weighed and reconsidered again and again. A moment later, he confirmed the release. A golden announcement burst before the eyes of every player in World Zone 616. World Zone 616 announcement. Player Faustus has issued the World Quest War Edict. Pay 100 copper coins to qualify for the quest. The announcement sounded 3 times in a row. The world channel erupted once more. By the gods, Faustus is making his move.
Take it, take it, take it.
If Faustus is involved, you can accept it with your eyes closed. Exactly. The big guy gets the meat, and if we're lucky, we can at least drink some soup. Countless players rushed to pay the copper coins and sign up, not even bothering to read the quest details first. Only after a line of golden text appeared in their quest logs did they finally see the full contents of the War Edict. War Edict, issued by Faustus.
Quest difficulty, SSS rank.
Quest objective, exterminate all non-human races on site. Quest description, the non-human races have invaded. Let all humanity strike back together. Any player in World Zone 616 may kill any non-human race or non-human player on site. Quest duration, long-term. Quest rewards, for every non-human race or non-human player killed, receive 20 silver coins /2 merit points /200 quest EXP. At the same time, the system notifications at Daniel's ear poured down like a torrential storm.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Gold coins plus 100.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Gold coins plus 100.
Ding.
Millionfold boost triggered. Gold coins plus 100. The player's enthusiasm for purchasing quest qualification was unbelievably high. Daniel glanced at his wealth value. In just a few moments, it had already broken through the 10 billion mark. And the number was still climbing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Daniel muted the notifications and summoned all the high-ranking commanders of his legions. Inside the council hall, candlelight stretched every shadow long across the floor. Hudson, Victor, Alan, Aliris, every face was solemn and resolute. Daniel briefly informed them of the Sixfold Alliance's declaration of war. The hall fell silent for a moment, then was quickly engulfed by a heavy, suppressed fighting spirit. Hudson was the first to rise, his voice steady as iron. My Lord Duke, the Polaris Legion currently numbers 11 million soldiers, while the Doom Legion has 55 million. We possess 1 epic grade legion, 1 legendary grade legion, and countless elite forces. That strength is enough to deal with any non-human race. Daniel nodded, his gaze sweeping across every person present. The main forces of the non-human races are currently tied down at the northern fortress, locked in confrontation with the Imperial Army. His voice was not loud, yet every word carried clearly to everyone in the chamber. Our target is the Beastfolk main city Everfrost. Victor's eyes lit up. The Beastfolk have transferred all of their elite forces to the northern front. Everfrost must be badly undermanned right now. If we can take it in one stroke, not only will we relieve the Empire's pressure, we'll also drive a nail into this plane. Exactly. Daniel rose to his feet and walked to the enormous map hanging on the wall, then pressed a finger against the location marked Everfrost. You are to draft a detailed battle plan centered around this main city. Within 1 day, I want to see a complete proposal. Yes, sir. Everyone answered in unison. Daniel turned back, his gaze sweeping over every face once more. Candlelight danced in his eyes, as though some ancient flame were burning there. The non-human races have never abandoned their desire to destroy our humankind. His voice was low, but full of force. It is our duty to fight for the protection of our people. At once, every commander in the hall rose to their feet and placed a clenched fist over the chest. For humanity. 1 day later, outside Polaris City, a dark mass of troops stretched to the horizon. 65 million NPC warriors stood in formation, their armor gleaming with a cold metallic sheen beneath the morning light. Behind them stood millions of ordinary players. Some rode warhorses, some led hunting hounds, some carried giant bows nearly as tall as they were, and some leaned on rune-inlaid staves. The same battle intent burned in every pair of eyes. Standing atop the city wall, Daniel looked down upon this iron tide that he had built with his own hands. Move out. The Grand Army began its march. The road from Polaris City to Everfrost turned out to be unexpectedly smooth. The beastfolk had clearly adopted a scorched earth and defensive consolidation strategy, pulling all scattered populations and military forces back into their main city. Along the way, apart from scattered wild beasts and routed scouts, they encountered no resistance of any meaningful scale. Only after half a day's march did the outline of Everfrost appear on the horizon. Everfrost. It was a colossal city built against the mountains. Its gray stone walls rose more than 30 meters high, their surfaces carved all over with ancient beastfolk war totems. The top of the walls was packed shoulder to shoulder with beastfolk warriors, wolfkin, bearfolk, minotaurs. They gripped battle axes and giant hammers, low growls rumbling from their throats. The entire city had gathered tens of millions of beastfolk within it. And deep in the heart of the city, an aura that sent chills down the spine lay hidden like a dormant volcano, restrained but ready to erupt. That was the aura of a legendary grade powerhouse. Outside the city, Daniel's army had formed up in battle lines. War drums rose and fell without pause, and banners snapped violently in the wind. Everyone was waiting for that signal to charge. Inside the command tent, Daniel stood before the sand table, with Carodion and Elyrus at his side. He was silent for a moment, then turned his gaze toward Carodion. The revived peak legendary grade warrior stood quietly to one side, like a sheathed blade, silent, yet razor-sharp. Carodion. Daniel finally said, once the battle begins, your task is to heavily wound the beastfolk legendary grade expert. Weaken him to the limit, then leave the killing blow to me. Carodion gave a slight nod, his voice as calm as still water. As you command, my lord. Daniel nodded. The last time he had faced Harland, he had not possessed the strength to instantly kill a legendary grade powerhouse. He had only been able to grind him down to death through an endless barrage of skills. But on a battlefield, he would not have that kind of time or space. Let Carodion strike first and reduce the enemy to critical condition, then step in and finish him off himself. This was the safest plan. Daniel drew a deep breath and stepped out of the command tent. 65 million soldiers had already completed their formation. The clash of sword and shield, the tapping of staves against the earth, the snorting and pawing of warhorses, all of it wove together into a low, solemn prelude to war. Under the watch of all, Daniel raised a hand. Full army attack. Beneath Everfrost, the human army, numbering in the tens of millions, surged forward like a rising tide. Orders rolled from the rear to the front in wave after wave, like surf crashing against rock. Archer regiments prepare volley fire. Mage regiments begin chanting. The sound of bowstrings being drawn filled the battlefield, like 10,000 great birds beating their wings at once. The mages raised their staffs high. Elemental power gathered at the tips, warping the air itself from the heat. Siege core fire. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless advanced trebuchets launched in unison, hurling burning projectiles and massive ballista bolts toward Everfrost like a torrential storm. The walls, painstakingly built by beastfolk craftsmen, shook violently under the bombardment of steel and flame, smoke and dust billowing everywhere. Screams rang out from atop the walls. Some beastfolk were sent tumbling down from the battlements, some were pinned through by giant bolts, while others were swallowed by fire. After just 3 volleys, that once unshakable beastfolk stronghold was already on the verge of collapse. The beastfolk had long since transferred most of their war machines to the northern front, leaving the city with almost no meaningful means of retaliation. All they could do was stand atop the walls and use their flesh and blood to endure the baptism of steel and fire. Humans, you truly are insatiably greedy. A furious roar erupted from the depths of the city. A gigantic figure shot into the sky, carrying a pressure great enough to ruin heaven and earth as it plunged toward the human battle lines. A legendary grade powerhouse. Yet the formation of the human legions did not shift in the slightest. The archers continued firing. The mages continued chanting. It was as if that approaching shadow of death did not exist at all, because they knew someone would stop him. Daniel unfurled the Eternal Black King and shot into the sky. At the same moment, Carodion turned into a streak of golden light and slammed head-on into the beastfolk figure. Boom! The power of 2 legendary grade experts exploded across the heavens, the shockwave shredding the clouds for miles around. Corodian's longsword and the beastfolk powerhouse's battle axe clashed again and again, each collision bursting with dazzling sparks. In theory, human warriors were usually weaker than beastfolk when fighting opponents of the same tier. After all, beastfolk were born for battle. But Corodian was at the peak of legendary grade, while the golden-furred beastfolk opponent before him was only mid-tier. That gulf in strength was enough to crush any racial advantage. After only a few exchanges, the beastfolk expert was sent flying by Corodian's sword, blood scattering across the sky. Daniel did not spare a glance for that legendary grade duel. His eyes were fixed on Everfrost. Large numbers of beastfolk elites were pouring out from the city, trying to bypass the terrifying clash of those 2 legendary grade powers and destroy his side's war machines. Daniel let out a cold laugh. Godspeed. His figure flickered across the battlefield again, and every appearance was accompanied by 50 golden arrows of light. Those arrows swept through the ranks of beastfolk elites like the sides of death, carving bloody paths straight through them. -6,896,767. -7,956,676. -7,316,664. Epic-grade beastfolk warriors were like paper dolls before him. One arrow pierced through them, and their corpses dropped from the sky. Even the beastfolk commanders at the legendary grade level did not have time to see where the arrows had come from before they were torn apart by golden light. In just a few short minutes, dozens of beastfolk powerhouses had all fallen. On the battlefield, the players stared at the scene with mouths wide enough to fit a fist. By the gods, this is Faustus' strength? This is outrageous. Those epic-grade experts look like they're made of paper. 6 or 7 million damage. Who the hell can tank that? Drop that into our camp and whole groups would die instantly. Why do I feel like Faustus and I aren't even playing the same game? Why do you think there's only one player called a god? After slaughtering all the beastfolk elites, Daniel turned midair and flew toward the region where Corodian and the beastfolk legendary grade expert were battling. The aftershocks from the clash of 2 legendary grade powers were enough to tear any epic grade powerhouse to pieces. Yet Daniel passed through that zone of death without changing expression. By now, his HP, defense, and regeneration had long surpassed the boundaries of normal understanding. Not to mention, he still had methods of nullifying fatal damage. The moment he drew near the beastfolk expert, Daniel raised stellar wrath. Wind's embrace. An invisible force of wind surged in from all directions, binding the blood-soaked beastfolk legendary grade expert in place. His body froze in midair, like an insect trapped in amber. The beastfolk expert was both shocked and enraged. He was already struggling to hold out against Corodian. Now that he had been bound by a human spell, was he not nothing more than meat on the chopping block? A sharp gleam flashed through Corodian's eyes. He raised the long sword in his hand high overhead. 100-meter-long golden blade aura condensed along the edge, like divine punishment falling from the heavens. The sword fell. The beastfolk expert's body was cleaved into 2 halves by a single strike. But under the protection of a mortal singularity, the severed flesh and blood rapidly fused back together. Though he barely preserved his life, only a sliver of health remained. Daniel lifted a hand. Serpent's thunder cell.
Boom.
Dark clouds gathered in an instant. Purple lightning poured down like a storm, transforming into tens of thousands of thunder serpents that tore madly into the nearly dead beastfolk legendary grade powerhouse. -6,846,676. -7,584,676. -7,165,554. The last remnant of a mortal singularity inside the beastfolk expert had already been completely exhausted by Corodian's sword strike. Against such horrifying damage, he did not last even a second before turning to ashes within the lightning.
Ding.
You have killed the beastfolk legendary grade powerhouse, Bloodaxe Ganon. EXP plus 100 billion. Gold coins plus 1.8 billion. Obtained, Intermediate Divinity Fragment legendary grade. ×1. Obtained Raging Iron Armor, legendary grade. ×1. A faint smile touched Daniel's lips. Another intermediate divinity fragment. With the one that had dropped from Harlan before, he was now one step closer to forging a complete divinity. And then there was that legendary grade armor, along with all the equipment that had dropped earlier from the beastfolk epic grade and legendary grade elites. From this single battle alone, he had gained at least 50 pieces of gear above the epic grade level, including more than 10 legendary grade items. He opened the equipment interface and selected weapon enhancement. Prompt: consume 10 legendary grade items to upgrade Stellar Wrath. This action is irreversible. Confirm.
Ding.
Stellar Wrath has successfully devoured 10 legendary grade items. Current level: LV.10. Daniel opened the weapon panel. Stellar Wrath Supreme Grade. Level: 10. Trait: Growth Type. Attack Power: 5,000 to 11,000, plus 6,000. Equipment Effects: Agility plus 1,000, previously plus 500, grants Skill Star Veil, summons a Starlight Shield that absorbs 1 million damage. While the shield exists, the user is immune to all control effects. 3. Whenever a Forbidden Grade skill is cast, its effect is doubled. All archer class skill effects plus 200%, previously plus 100%. Durability, infinite.
Description.
A supreme-grade masterpiece forged in the final years of the legendary arrow god Aranus. It contains the boundless source power of the stars themselves. Every pattern etched into the bow records a lost spell, and every arrow it fires can call down heavenly punishment and tear apart the firmament. Daniel closed the panel and opened his status window. With the stacking of hundreds of buffs, equipment bonuses, and skill replication, his base damage output had already broken past the 7 million mark. The effect of the Fate Stone made every single one of his attacks equivalent to the damage of his strongest skill. That meant that even an ordinary basic shot could deal over 70 million damage. This level of damage output was simply monstrous. Daniel and Caro Dion hovered high in the air, looking down upon Everfrost below them. The Beastfolk warriors in the city were still putting up a desperate resistance, but the fall of their legendary-grade powerhouse had already determined the outcome of the battle. The morale of the Beastfolk had completely collapsed. Some dropped to their knees and surrendered. Some tried to break out. Some charged madly toward the human battle lines. May the Beast God protect us. Brothers, charge. The Beast God is with us. Crush these invaders. The Beastfolk will never be slaves. Daniel watched it all with an indifferent expression. If not for the fact that these Beastfolk made excellent laborers, he might truly have ordered a massacre. Hudson. His voice was calm as still water. Spare those who surrender. Kill all who resist. Send every Beastfolk willing to surrender to the mines. Hudson bowed. As you command, my Lord Duke. And one more thing, Daniel added. Have the Priest Corps on standby at all times, ready to resurrect any fallen warriors. The battle for Everfrost came to an end at dusk. In this war, the human army's casualties were negligible. Under overwhelming superiority of force and a complete resurrection system, death was nothing more than a brief pause. The gains, on the other hand, were astonishing. Daniel opened the post-battle report, his eyes quickly sweeping across the numbers. 1.3 million Beastfolk prisoners, most of them wounded. Supplies, ore, and equipment of every kind were piled up like mountains. Gold coins alone were worth hundreds of billions.
Ding.
Obtained gold mine legendary grade, ×1.
Ding.
Obtained silver mine epic grade, ×1. The corners of Daniel's mouth lifted slightly. War profiteering really was the fastest road to riches. Daniel closed the interface and lifted his gaze toward the distant horizon. Ironforge had been the first main city he conquered. Everfrost was the second. One in the south, one in the north, like two wedges hammered deep into the heartland of the non-human races. Next, his target would be the elves. Northern Great Wall, Winterold. While Daniel was laying siege to cities in the south, the war in the north had already entered its most brutal phase. A city wall that stretched for tens of thousands of miles and rose 100 meters high cut across the mountain range like a scar that split the world in two. Winterhold sat at the most critical pass, wrapped in layer upon layer of magical barriers like a giant beast curled inside its shell. Nearly 1 trillion soldiers of the sixfold host were arrayed beneath the walls, their countless banners blotting out the sky and the sun. Hundreds of thousands of siege weapons fired at once, flaming shells and massive bolts pouring toward the fortress like a storm. Yet when assaults powerful enough to erase ordinary cities struck the magical barriers, they produced only ripples of light before vanishing into nothing.
Boom.
At last, one layer of the barrier shattered under the unending bombardment. The sixfold host erupted in thunderous cheers. Excellent. The humans are finally running short on resources. Roar, 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 crush those insects up there. May the elven god bless us. Victory is ours. That shattered barrier was quickly filled in by a fresh new layer of light rising from behind it. But the blood-maddened warriors of the sixfold host only grew more excited. 1,000 miles beyond Winterhold, another war was unfolding in a land shrouded by a bizarre and terrifying force. Across a 1,000-mile radius, space itself twisted and warped. Mist swirled everywhere, as though someone had torn open a crack to another world upon this land. Dozens of figures were crossing and clashing within this god's car, every collision unleashing enough force to destroy a city. The human side had only a little over 10 legendary-grade powerhouses. Opposing them, the sixfold host had more than 20. The numerical gap was only barely offset by the humans' perfect coordination and tacit teamwork. Barely.
Boom.
A violent blast of power forced an old man on the human side back several steps. Montague, the peak legendary-grade beastfolk expert, withdrew his fist, swept his gaze across the field, and suddenly shouted, "Stop." At his command, the legendary-grade experts of the 6 races immediately disengaged from battle and gathered around him with practiced precision. Montague cast a cold glance at the human powerhouses opposite him, the corner of his mouth curling into a disdainful sneer. "We'll spare your miserable lives for today. Retreat." Before the echo of his voice had even faded, more than 20 figures withdrew like a receding tide, vanishing over the horizon in the blink of an eye. The human powerhouses stared in the direction they had gone, their expressions grave. "This isn't normal." A weak voice came from the crowd. The priest Tiana leaned against a broken stone pillar, her face pale as paper, but a sharp light still burned in her eyes. "Haven't any of you noticed?" Though her voice was weak, each word came through with complete clarity. Every time the balance of the situation starts to tip like this, they withdraw on their own. Fuck these damned non-human races. Do they really think our human race is easy prey? One of the powerhouses felt a suffocating pressure in his chest. Marco, standing nearby, frowned. A dreadful premonition began rising from the depths of his heart. Tiana, are you saying they're doing this on purpose? Tiana nodded. No matter how many reinforcements the Empire sends, they always keep their numbers just above ours. Her gaze deepened. Think about it. Why would they do that? Marco's face changed drastically. They're putting pressure on us, while still letting us see a chance to hold the line. His voice turned hoarse. They want us to keep asking the Empire for reinforcements.
Exactly.
If nothing unexpected happens, their goal is to drain the Empire's supply of legendary-grade powerhouses. Tiana picked up the thread, a chill creeping into her tone. To be precise, they want to drain the Watchers guarding the Abyss Rift. Hiss dash. Every human powerhouse present sucked in a sharp breath. Very soon, the human powerhouses exchanged uneasy glances, their brows tightly furrowed. At the same time, the same name surfaced in all of their minds. The Shadow Council. A scheme of this scale, a hand so skilled at using the entire continent as a chessboard, who else could it be but that organization made up of human traitors? What a vicious plot. On one side, they were using the six-fold host to pressure Winterhold, forcing the Empire to keep sending reinforcements north. And where could those reinforcements come from? Only from the Watchers stationed at the Abyss Rift. Once the defenses at the Abyss Rift were weakened to a certain point, that would be the day the Shadowkin broke free of their seal. When that time came, the Empire would face Shadowkin invasion from within and non-human armies besieging it from without. Internal strife and external threat, attacking from both sides, the human race would be plunged into utter ruin. This was a naked, unavoidable stratagem. The Shadow Council was using the entire continent as its chessboard, with the Shadowkin and the six races as its pieces in a grand game against the human empire. And this time, humanity had been forced into a corner with no way out. Marco's expression shifted several times. After a long while, he finally forced a sentence out through clenched teeth. We can't just sit here and wait to die. We have to come up with a countermeasure. The human powerhouses present nodded in silence, every face heavy with grim resolve. Inside the main camp of the six-fold host, Montague led the other non-human experts back into the command tent. Candlelight flickered within, casting the shadow of a gaunt figure onto the beast-hide drapes. It was an old man with a full head of silver hair. His face looked like dried tree bark, the wrinkles on it seeming to hide countless conspiracies. He was dressed almost exactly like Harland had been, black robes embroidered with dark red runes, every line resembling dried blood. Only one thing was different.
He wore no mask.
That deeply wrinkled face was laid bare in the candlelight, with nothing to conceal it. Lord Iris. Greetings, Lord Iris. The non-human experts immediately bowed when they saw the old man, their voices filled with unconcealed reverence. Iris, the name with the highest bounty on the Empire's wanted list. The mentor of the fallen mage Harland, and a peak legendary grade powerhouse of the dark magic lineage. His name had hung on the wanted list for a full 300 years, and not once had anyone ever been able to so much as touch the hem of his robe. Iris gave a slight nod, expressionless. His aged voice rasped like sandpaper grinding together. You have all worked hard these past days. His withered fingers tapped lightly against the table, producing a steady, muffled rhythm. Tomorrow, the 20 legendary-grade powerhouses sent by the Shadow Council will arrive. Montague's pupils contracted sharply at those words, then an uncontrollable surge of delight rose in his eyes. Every non-human expert in the tent revealed the same expression. 20 legendary-grade powerhouses, added to their current 25, would make 45 in total. If 45 legendary-grade experts struck at once, what could a mere Winterhold possibly use to stop them? Montague straightened abruptly, barely suppressing the excitement in his voice. Lord Iris, with the Shadow Council's full support, we will definitely breach Winterhold in one stroke tomorrow. A cold curve tugged at the corner of Iris's mouth. If the Empire does not send reinforcements, then we will simply take the northern frontier in one sweep. And if they pull the Watchers away from the Abyss Rift? A sharp light flashed through his cloudy old eyes. Then we let the Shadowkin break their seal and pour out from the south. He slowly rose to his feet, his gaunt shadow drawn long by the candlelight. The Empire wants both to hold the north and to suppress the Shadowkin. His voice was calm as still water, yet every non-human expert present felt a chill seep into their bones. How could there be such a good thing in this world? If they cannot bear to abandon either side, then they are doomed to lose everything. South, Ariahold. The offensive of the human legions, numbering in the tens of millions, crashed against the Dark Elves' final line of defense like an enraged tide, wave after wave. The elves' rain of arrows was certainly deadly, each shaft capable of claiming a life with perfect precision, but under the overwhelming storm of suppressive fire, their resistance seemed pitifully weak.
Boom.
With an earth-shaking explosion, Ariahold's walls finally collapsed under the relentless bombardment. Broken stone flew everywhere, smoke and dust filled the air, and ancient elven runes turned to ash in the flames. Whoa, 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 the city's fallen. Elven goddess, here I come. Gotta say, these elves really hurt when they fight, but painful and enjoyable at the same time. Can't help it. Who told these elves to fight with such absurdly beautiful faces? It's honestly hard to hate them. Cut the crap and attack. Glory belongs to humanity. Kill dash. Countless human warriors surged through the breach in the wall like a flood bursting through a broken dam. Seen from high above, a tide of steel was swallowing the entire city with unstoppable force. The fall of Aryahold was already set in stone. Not far from the battlefield, inside the god's car, golden swordlight and violet lightning wove together into a net of death. Alyrис held the Sword of Roses, its blade flowing with brilliant purple radiance. Every slash she delivered carried enough force to split the earth, crashing down again and again upon the immobilized elven legendary grade expert. -3,596,799. -3,794,897. -3,484,524. And above that elven expert's head, tens of thousands of thunder serpents were striking down without pause. Each thunder serpent carried more than 70 million damage, tearing through his defenses like merciless heavenly punishment. -7,649,946. -7,585,546. -7,349,949. The last remnant of a mortal singularity within the elf's body was rapidly draining away amid the lightning. Only 5 seconds. The moment the final trace of a mortal singularity was exhausted, his body was reduced to ash in the lightning before he could even let out a scream.
Ding.
You have slain the elven legendary grade powerhouse Eric. EXP plus 82 billion. Gold coins plus 1.5 billion. Obtained Blade of Night, legendary grade, ×1. Obtained Dark Moon Hunter armor, legendary grade, ×1. Obtained Lower Divinity Fragment, legendary grade, ×1. Daniel's expression did not change. Aryahold's guardian had been only an early legendary grade expert. It was perfectly normal for him to drop a lower divinity fragment. He turned his gaze toward another battlefield not far away. Caro Dion was fighting another elven legendary grade expert, his golden swordlight pouring down like a raging storm and forcing the enemy back step by step. But Caro Dion was clearly holding back. He still remembered Daniel's order. The final blow had to be left for him. Daniel activated Godspeed, and his figure instantly appeared in the middle of that battlefield. Wind's Embrace. Invisible wind force rushed in from all directions, binding the struggling elven legendary grade expert tightly in place. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Dark clouds gathered in an instant, and tens of thousands of thunder serpents came crashing down once again. -7,646,489. -7,649,644. -7,659,499. A few seconds later.
Ding.
You have slain the elven legendary grade powerhouse, Arizin. EXP plus 75 billion. Gold coins plus 1.3 billion. Obtained Brushhide Belt, legendary grade, ×1. Obtained Flying Leaf Boots, legendary grade, ×1. Obtained Lower Divinity Fragment, legendary grade, ×1. Daniel frowned slightly. Another Lower Divinity Fragment. But it did not matter. Whether intermediate or lower, they were all the same in his eyes. Once the players grew stronger in the future, these fragments could also be used to cultivate the elite forces under his command. Daniel opened his inventory and took out the 6 legendary grade items gained from this battle. Alyrис. He called her over. Alyris sheathed her sword and walked up, the aura of fierce combat still clinging to her. She dropped to one knee. Golden blood from the elven powerhouse still stained her silver-white light armor. My lord Duke. Daniel held the 6 legendary grade items out to her. These are yours. Alyris snapped her head up, disbelief filling her pale golden eyes. Her lips parted, but it took her a long moment to find her voice again. Thank you for your reward, my lord. Alyris is willing to brave fire and water for you to die 10,000 deaths without regret. Daniel smiled. Alyrис's loyalty to him had already reached the level of life and death devotion. Strengthening her was the same as strengthening himself. He took another item from his inventory, a crystal radiating 7-colored light, and handed it to her. You should have enough accumulated strength by now to break through to legendary grade, shouldn't you? Alyris accepted the Star Tier Stone, legendary grade. Feeling the vast power contained within it, a confident gleam flashed in her eyes. I am completely certain. Daniel nodded. Alyris stored the 6 legendary grade items away, drew a deep breath, and crushed the crystal in her hand. A pillar of golden light descended from the heavens, piercing through the clouds and enveloping her entire body. The light was blazing and sacred, as though some ancient god were gazing down upon her. Within the beam, Alyris slowly rose into the air. Her silver-white light armor shattered into fragments within the golden radiance, replaced by a new suit of armor flowing with golden runes. The human powerhouses around her stared at the sight, and collectively sucked in a sharp breath. Wait, that's the sign of advancing to legendary grade. As expected, war is the cruelest field of flesh and blood, but also the finest whetstone for tempering the strong. The players, meanwhile, stared blankly up at the pillar of light that connected heaven and earth. By the gods, that light pillar is way too flashy. Is Faustus ascending to godhood? If that were the case, you'd hear an announcement first. What did Faustus do this time? I just took a look with hawk eye. It seemed like that female NPC is leveling up. Epic grade promotion? No, that has to be an advancement to legendary grade. Otherwise, there's no way it would have this kind of effect. But this is insane. Even Faustus's captain of the guard is legendary grade now. So, this is what you get for following a big shot? I want to be an NPC too.
Ding.
The powerhouse under your command, Eliris, legendary grade, has successfully advanced to legendary grade early stage. The golden light faded, and Eliris slowly descended from the sky. Her aura was now completely different from before. Those pale golden eyes had become deeper and more profound, and a faint divine radiance seemed to flow around her body. Daniel cast a detection spell. Eliris, LV 100, legendary grade, early stage. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. This was now the second legendary grade follower at his side. At that very moment, a world announcement rang out across the entire world of Stellar. Server-wide announcement. Congratulations to player Faustus for conquering the Elven main city, Ariahold. Rewards, contribution points plus 100,000. Gold coins plus 100,000. Special troop class awakening scroll times 10. NPC population plus 100,000. Achievement earned. Territory pioneer. The announcement sounded 3 times in succession, golden text flashing before every player's eyes. The world channel exploded instantly. Faustus has taken another city. By the gods, that makes the 3rd non-human main city, doesn't it? Beast folk, dwarves, elves. Faustus has cleaned up all 3 races. At Faustus, when are you opening teleport permissions, big bro? Don't misunderstand, I just want to appreciate the architecture of the elven race. Haha, everyone knows what you're really thinking. I'm on site right now, and let me just say this bluntly. If you came here, you'd just be an ugly freak. Damn it, you're not any better. So what? I'm guarding a bunch of elves right now. Pfft.
Goodie. Ding.
Contribution points plus 200,000. Gold coins plus 300,000. Achievement completed. Expand the frontier.
Ding.
NPC population plus 10 million. Special troop class awakening scroll times 200. Listening to the system notifications in his ear, Daniel's lips curved faintly upward. The series of rewards left him deeply satisfied. That much NPC population would be enough to let him maintain overwhelming numerical superiority throughout his expansion. And the special troop class awakening scrolls meant he could upgrade the powerful warriors in his legions into elite troop classes. Yet before the smile could fully fade from his face, 3 blood-red announcements stabbed into every heart like 3 crimson blades. Emergency announcement for World Zone 616. Tiana, Deputy Legion Commander of Winterhold and Legendary Grade Powerhouse, has fallen in battle. Emergency announcement for World Zone 616. Cole, Deputy Legion Commander of Winterhold and Legendary Grade Powerhouse, has fallen in battle. Emergency announcement for World Zone 616. Upton, Deputy Chief of Staff of Winterhold and Legendary Grade Powerhouse, has fallen in battle. The world channel fell into instant silence. Then came a flood of questions. By the gods, what happened? 3 legendary grade powerhouses all died at once. What the hell happened at Winterhold? Oh my god, this game's background setting is way too immersive. I instantly got pulled into this whole empire on the brink atmosphere. Yeah, if this keeps going, are we humans going to lose? Haha, who cares? If the NPCs don't make way, how are we players supposed to rise? Exactly. If the devs want to keep players around, they have to focus on players. These NPCs are just background props. So, where's the game's official website? Unlike the heated discussion among the players in the World Channel, the smile on Daniel's face vanished at once. NPCs? Those were living, breathing lives. 3 legendary grade powerhouses had fallen at the same time. The brutality of the war in the North far exceeded his imagination. Winterhold was likely already on the verge of collapse. Once the fortress fell, the nearly trillion-strong sixfold host would pour into the Empire's heartland like a tidal wave. And when that happened, what kind of catastrophe would the Empire's people in the North face? Homes destroyed. Families torn apart. Wives and children separated from their loved ones. He had seen such scenes far too many times. Daniel took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the urge to rush north immediately. That was a battlefield for legendary-grade powerhouses. With dozens of legendary-grade experts fighting there, even lower and mid-tier legendary-grade combatants could do little more than barely protect themselves. With his current strength, even if he went, he would not be able to change the tide. Rather than throwing his life away, it was better to continue pinning down the strength of the non-human races behind enemy lines. Every non-human main city he captured was one more share of pressure taken off the northern front. But for the situation in the north to have deteriorated this far, it was deeply worrying. In the end, it all came down to one thing. The Empire was still not strong enough. At first, the Empire's upper echelon had shown almost no vigilance toward the intensity of this war. In their eyes, this was nothing more than another round of dissatisfaction from the 6 non-human races an alliance formed to pressure humanity into giving them concessions. 1 against 6, that was all. The advantage is ours. But once the war truly began, the Empire's top-tier strength immediately showed cracks. The Empire did have quite a few legendary-grade powerhouses. If they were all mobilized, they could absolutely beat the 6 races into dust. But the problem was that the overwhelming majority of those legendary grade experts bore the duty of watching over the Abyss Rift. They simply could not leave their posts. Those idiots in high office had definitely counted every single legendary grade powerhouse into the Empire's combat roster. A pack of fools who only liked looking at paper data. Daniel glanced at his wealth value. I have to revive them as soon as possible, to fill the gap in humanity's battle strength. He took out the Banner of Valor. The star embroidered on the banner gave off a faint glow in the dusk. Prompt: spend 3 trillion gold coins to condense the remnant souls of the 3 fallen human legendary grade powerhouses? Yes. Daniel did not hesitate in the slightest. Prompt: incomplete divine souls, successfully condensed. Current stored remnant souls: Tiana, legendary grade, mid-stage. Cole, legendary grade, early stage. Upton, legendary grade, early stage. He drew a deep breath and continued. Prompt: spend 3 trillion gold coins to convert the remnant souls of the 3 powerhouses into relics? Yes. Prompt: remnant soul conversion complete. Daniel took 3 relics out of his inventory. Tiana's relic, legendary grade, mid-stage. Cole's relic, legendary grade, early stage. Upton's relic, legendary grade, early stage. Each relic radiated a faint golden glow, the imprint of the obsession those powerhouses had carried in life. He activated the forbidden spell Seraphic Revival, placing the 3 relics one by one into the light. Once revived, these powerhouses would lose their memories from life and become his followers. But serving him was the same as serving humanity. There was nothing wrong with that. Prompt: spend 3 trillion gold coins to revive the 3 human powerhouses? Yes.
Ding.
Successfully revived 3 human powerhouses. 3 faint phantoms appeared out of thin air above the altar, gradually solidifying. When the golden light faded, the 3 armored powerhouses opened their eyes at the same time and dropped to one knee. Good day, my lord. Daniel nodded, finally feeling relieved. Arya Hold, Lord's Manor. Daniel sat in the seat that had once belonged to the Elven Guardian, flipping through the war settlement report in his hand. The system notifications kept sounding at his ear.
Ding.
Obtained Mana Stone, Black Gold Grade, ×5.
Ding.
Obtained Gold Mine, Platinum Grade, ×1.
Ding.
Gold coins plus 253 billion. His gaze fell on the casualty statistics. The human losses remained extremely low, and the elven casualties were also far smaller than he had expected. Daniel was not surprised. When the army had stormed into the city, many of the elven commanders had voluntarily surrendered to the human legions. Of course, they had also listed a long string of conditions: treat prisoners well, do not loot civilians, do not destroy the city or the natural environment. To Daniel, those conditions were nothing much. Preserving the elven population for his own use was what mattered most. So long as it did not touch his bottom line, he readily accepted their surrender. In this battle, more than 3 million elven warriors and over 10 million civilians had been taken prisoner. After seeing firsthand how ferocious the beast folk were, Daniel found himself somewhat more interested in the elves. Perhaps in the future, he could draw some elites from among these elven prisoners and form an elven archer legion. But for now, they could go mine first. Once they had tasted the bitterness of working the mines, they would be far more willing to accept the benefits Daniel later tossed their way. Daniel withdrew his thoughts and turned his gaze back to the top of the report. Mana Stone. His eyes shifted slightly. When gold coins began to depreciate, mana coins naturally emerged. It took 100 gold coins to exchange for a single mana coin, and that exchange rate was recognized by the system itself. That meant the value of Mana Stone went far beyond its face worth. Once the game merged with reality, all kinds of magitech powered by mana would erupt into existence.
Mana cannons, mana wings, mana armor, mana machinery.
They would completely transform the face of the real world. In short, this was an enormous fortune. Daniel closed the report and opened the city management interface. Polaris City, Everfrost, Aryahold, and Ironforge. The cities under Daniel's command covered more than 10,000 square kilometers. Under him were 14.5 million NPC troops and more than 60 million player troops. Among his legendary grade powerhouses were the peak stage expert Caro Dion, the mid-stage expert Tiana, and the early stage experts Aliris, Cole, and Upton. The civilian population under his rule totaled more than 300 million, plus tens of millions of beast folk, dwarven and elven military, and civilian prisoners. In the world of Stellar, that was already a force no one could ignore. Leaning back in his chair, Daniel gazed north through the window lattice. Once he swept away all the non-human forces, he would forcibly open the world gate and proactively launch a world war. The humiliations he had suffered in his previous lives, he would settle them one by one. Just as he was thinking, a blood-red world announcement suddenly exploded across the sky. Emergency, server-wide announcement. The 9-star Abyss Rift in Galehold territory has been unsealed. A Shadowkin army is about to invade. The 7-star Abyss Rift in Skyhold territory has been unsealed. A Shadowkin army is about to invade. The 5-star Abyss Rift in Luminera territory has been unsealed. A Shadowkin army is about to invade. The Abyss is in upheaval, and the Shadowkin are invading. The entire world will face the threat of the Shadowkin. The flames of war are about to sweep across the land, players. Prepare yourselves to confront the Abyssal Shadowkin. Daniel shot to his feet. The plot had changed again. A 9-star Abyss Rift. That meant 9 legendary-grade powerhouses, among whom there would definitely be peak stage and even transcendent existences. The northern fortress was already under pressure from billions of non-human troops, and now the abyss rifts inside the Empire had broken their seals at this exact moment. This had clearly been planned for a very long time. The fools in the Empire's upper ranks were probably regretting it so badly their guts had turned green. Sure enough, another announcement followed immediately after. Imperial Edict. To the citizens of the Empire. The northern fortress trembles beneath the iron hoofbeats of the non-human invaders. At the same time, the armies of the Shadowkin awaken from the darkness. The hour of reckoning has arrived, and the Empire stands on the brink of destruction. In this darkest hour, I do not speak to you from a throne with commands, but with the heartbeat of this blood-soaked land. Let every hand that can wield a sword, every body that can bear armor, every soul that can ride to war hasten toward the frontier and forge yourselves into the wall that will defend our homeland. This battle is not for glory, nor for conquest, but for the soil beneath our feet. May the Empire endure. May humanity endure forever.
Ding.
Do you accept the main version quest, The Empire on the Brink? Daniel accepted, without the slightest hesitation. Prompt. You have accepted the mission. The mission difficulty will be automatically adjusted according to your title and strength. He opened the quest log. The Empire on the Brink. Duke Tier. Quest difficulty. Legendary grade. Objectives. Repel and crush the invasion of the Shadowkin. Repel and crush the invasion of the sixfold host.
Quest description.
Winterhold is engulfed in endless warfire, its commanding generals falling one after another. The Empire has been forced to redeploy the Rift Watchers northward as reinforcements, leaving the Rift seals weakened. Seizing the opportunity, the Shadow Council has broken the seals, and countless Shadowkin are pouring out of the abyss. At the same time, deep within the demon abyss, the Shadowkin overlord has already united the demon domain. With the non-human races pressing in from without, and the Shadowkin breaking free from within, the human empire now faces enemies on both fronts. The torch of civilization flickers in the wind. Whether it endures or is extinguished will be decided today. Quest duration, long-term. Quest rewards, Imperial Morale, Human Merit, Merit Points / Gold Coins / Contribution Points, Divinity Fragments, Achievements, Titles, Noble Rank, Special Items, World Key. Daniel closed the quest log. His gaze lingered on the words World Key for a moment before moving away. This quest offered an extremely high degree of freedom, yet the rewards were anything but stingy. Now that the non-human races and the Shadowkin were invading at the same time, with the Shadow Council lurking in the dark and waiting for its chance, every move had to be made with caution. He closed the mission panel and summoned all the powerhouses under his command. Inside the council hall, Caro Dion, Tiana, Aliris, Cole, and Upton stood in a straight line, every face solemn as iron. Daniel swept his gaze over them and spoke directly. All of you will follow me to the Abyss Rift and suppress the Shadowkin. At once, battle intent flared in the eyes of every powerhouse present. We are willing to brave fire and water for you, my lord. Luminera, 5-star Abyss Rift. 6 figures dove out of the clouds and landed steadily on the open ground before the entrance to the Abyss Rift. Daniel gazed at the cracks spilling out endless black mist and frowned slightly. The surrounding area was deathly silent. Not even the chirping of insects could be heard. This calm was far too abnormal. But he knew it was only a surface illusion. Inside the Abyss Rift, it was probably already a landscape of mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Scattered around the entrance were large numbers of Shadowkin corpses. Some had been cut in two, some burned into charcoal, and some frozen into ice statues. Whoever had struck had done so cleanly and decisively, without the slightest bit of wasted movement. Daniel withdrew his gaze and strode toward the entrance of the Abyss Rift. Move in. Before the words had even fully fallen, he had already rushed into the black mist. Caro Dion and the others followed close behind. In the blink of an eye, all 6 figures were swallowed by darkness. On a distant tower, a golden figure watched all of this in silence, making no move to stop them. He was the watcher of this Abyss Rift. The Shadowkin corpses at the entrance had been slain by his hand. He had only one duty to suppress any Shadowkin that attempted to break through the seal. As for people going in, that was none of his business, and not within his power to stop. Inside the Abyss Rift, before them stretched a dark crimson wasteland. Several violet crescent moons floated in the sky, casting a strange and ghostly glow across the land. In the distance, a vast Shadowkin army was assembling, a black mass so dense it stretched beyond sight. Caro Dion. Daniel spoke in a deep voice. Caro Dion gave a slight nod. Understood. He led Tiana, Aliris, and the others, transforming into 5 streaks of light as they sped toward the rear of the Shadowkin army. There, several terrifying auras could be sensed. Legendary-grade powerhouses. Daniel unfurled the Eternal Black King, his black gold-colored wings tracing a dazzling arc beneath the broken moons. In mere moments, he was already above the Shadowkin army. Human. You insects have a lot of nerve, daring to venture deep into Shadowkin territory.
Damnat humans.
The debt from back then when you colluded with the god race hasn't been settled yet. Today, we'll start by taking your lives. Countless Shadowkin warriors looked up, their crimson eyes locked firmly on the figure in the sky. Arrows, magic, and curses poured toward him like a storm. Daniel's expression remained unchanged. Star Veil. A pale golden starlight shield condensed around him. Attacks powerful enough to tear through city walls struck it and produced nothing more than tiny ripples. He raised Stellar Wrath. Arrow Storm. Shattering Comet. Serpent's Thunder Cell. The bowstring trembled as 3 skills erupted at once. Countless arrows transformed into a rain of fire and lightning serpents, crashing down like an apocalyptic disaster. -76,894,609. -76,469,764. -84,045,848. Crimson critical hit damage numbers exploded throughout the Shadowkin army like flowers of death in full bloom. Even legendary-grade Shadowkin commanders were like paper in front of him. As for epic-grade warriors, they did not even have time to scream before turning to ash. With one volley, hundreds of thousands of Shadowkin were annihilated. 2 volleys. 3 volleys. In just a few short minutes, this Shadowkin legion of several million was already on the verge of collapse. The surviving Shadowkin soldiers stared at that black gold-colored figure in the sky, their eyes filled with terror. That's a legendary-grade powerhouse. Impossible. He doesn't have a legendary-grade aura. But this is absurd. Why is he this strong? Find a way to kill him. Daniel gave them no chance. The arrow rain did not stop. The lightning did not cease. Tens of thousands of lightning serpents roamed across the battlefield, leaving utter desolation in their wake. 10 minutes later, the entire Shadowkin Legion had been wiped out.
Ding.
Gold coins plus 250,000. EXP plus 1.6 billion. Daniel spread his wings and flew toward the distorted region of space in the distance.
God's car.
5 terrifying auras were colliding madly within this torn-apart region of space. Every clash released power enough to flatten mountains. The earth trembled, and the sky burned. Karodion was locked in combat with the Shadowkin leader. Golden sword light and dark crimson demonic flames intertwined into a net of death, the surrounding air twisting from the heat. On the other 4 battlefields, Tiana, Aliris, Cole, and Upton were fighting the remaining 4 legendary-grade Shadowkin. Both sides were evenly matched, and there was no clear winner for the moment. Just then, Daniel's figure appeared at the edge of the battlefield. The Shadowkin leader, Redroth, noticed the uninvited guest immediately. While parrying Karodion's assault, he glanced sidelong at the human archer and pulled his lips into a scornful smile. Has humanity run out of people? They actually sent an ant here to die. Daniel remained expressionless and quietly cast a detection spell. Shadowkin leader, Redroth, legendary grade, high stage, level 95, HP 1 billion/2 billion 50 million, attack 10 million to 15 million, defense 8,800,000, skills Abyss Descends, Demon Flame Slash, Whispering Curse, Shadow Guard, Abyssal Demonic Power, Indestructible Substance, Redroth Points. Description: the ruler of the 5-star Abyss Rift, a high-stage legendary-grade Shadowkin powerhouse, and one of the 36 Grand Lords serving under the Shadowkin Overlord. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. 800 points of indestructible substance. That meant he would have to kill Redroth 800 times before he could truly destroy him. That was the terrifying part of a legendary-grade powerhouse. He did not hesitate for even a moment. He activated God's speed at once. In the next instant, he appeared less than 10 meters behind Redroth. Wind's Embrace. Invisible wind force surged in from all directions, transforming into countless transparent chains that wrapped around Regrowth's limbs, neck, and waist. Pale golden runes flowed across those chains, each one containing an ancient law of wind. Regrowth's expression changed drastically. He discovered that his body had become completely immobile. Even the mana inside him was being firmly suppressed by an invisible power. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Storm clouds gathered in an instant, violet lightning roaring and rolling through them. The next second, tens of thousands of thunder serpents came crashing down, engulfing Redroth within them. -75,854,849. -73,494,994. -76,494,994. A sharp light flashed through Karodion's eyes. He raised the longsword in his hand high overhead, and a 100-meter-long golden sword aura condensed along the blade. It was an overwhelmingly powerful strike infused with indestructible substance. Sacred Judgment.
Boom.
The sword fell. Golden light descended like divine punishment, cleaving heaven and earth apart, slamming down viciously onto Regrowth's head. -134,848,978. Critical hit. Redroth let out a howl of agony. The indestructible substance within his body burned frantically, trying to withstand that fatal blow. But Daniel's lightning did not pause for even an instant. Every second, it tore through his defenses. Every second, it consumed the indestructible substance he relied on to stay alive. Within only a few breaths, Redroth had already suffered severe wounds. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Just moments ago, he had mocked humanity for having no one left. And now he was being driven into the state by a human who was not even legendary grade. This was the greatest humiliation imaginable. Ryarg dash. With a furious roar, Redroth erupted with indestructible substance like a volcano, forcibly breaking free from the wind chains.
Ding.
Your skill, Wind's Embrace, has been forcibly broken. He glared at Daniel with hatred, his eyes brimming with killing intent. Die for me. Before his words had fully fallen, he had already abandoned Carodion and lunged straight at Daniel. Daniel's expression remained calm. He had never expected a single skill to permanently bind a high-stage legendary-grade powerhouse. Indestructible substance had many special uses. Breaking restraints was only one of them, but every time it was used in that way, it consumed a massive amount. If Redroth kept burning through it like this, how much could he possibly have left? Daniel's figure flashed, Godspeed activating once more as he instantly widened the distance between them. Wind's Embrace. Pale golden chains surged forth from the void again, binding Redroth tightly in place. Get the hell off me. Never in his life had Redroth hated a human this much. He frantically drove his indestructible substance, trying to break free again. But every time he shattered the restraints, new chains coiled around him. And every burst of consumption meant he was one step closer to death. Carodion's attacks did not stop. Every strike carried the amplification of indestructible substance. Every strike carved wounds so deep they exposed bone across Regrowth's body. Minus 287,878,949. Regrowth's HP plummeted like a collapsing dam. He tried once more to break free, only to discover in horror that the indestructible substance inside him was almost exhausted. I am a Grand Lord of the Shadowken. Am I really going to die here in such a miserable way today?
No.
I refuse. I refuse. No one answered him. Only the tens of thousands of thunder serpents continued tearing his body apart without pause. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. When the last trace of indestructible substance was finally used up, Regrowth's body exploded under the lightning, bursting into fragments that filled the sky.
Ding.
You have slain the Shadowken Grand Lord, Redroth, legendary grade, high stage. Gold coins plus 5 million. Contribution points plus 400,000. Obtained, High Divinity Fragment, legendary grade, ×1. Obtained Forbidden Grade skill, Thunder Abyss. Obtained, Heaven's Card ticket ×1. Daniel's breathing caught slightly. A High Divinity Fragment. After reaching level 200 and completing his class advancement, he would be able to fuse with a divinity. And among all divinities, High Divinity was the finest of the finest. That was what he truly wanted. Lower and intermediate divinities were not even worth mentioning. And besides the divinity fragment, there was also a Forbidden Grade skill book. He opened the skill book, which shimmered with violet lightning. Thunder Abyss, SSS rank, Forbidden. Learning requirement. Archer/level 150. Effect, calls forth abyssal lightning to form a permanent thunder prison within a designated area, 1,000 by 1,000 meters. All enemy targets within the domain are forcibly afflicted with paralysis, silence, and slow. 1 million thunder arrows are automatically generated within the domain, continuously attacking all enemies inside. Each thunder arrow deals damage equal to 100% of the caster's attack power. Domain duration, unlimited, can be terminated at any time by the caster, consumes 1% MP per second. Description. A forbidden divine art said to have been created by an ancient arrow god who drew upon the lightning of the abyss. Once a single arrow is loosed, 10,000 bolts descend. Whoever is trapped within can only be reduced to ashes amid the endless storm. A burning light flashed through Daniel's eyes. Together with Skyrend Impact, which he had obtained earlier, he now possessed 2 forbidden grade skills. Once he completed this mission and obtained the World Key, he would be able to forcibly kill the World Watcher and trigger the World War. When that time came, after completing his class advancement and reaching level 150, these 2 forbidden spells would truly come into their own. He then took out the ticket radiating faint golden light. Heaven's Card ticket, early grade. Restriction, requires 100 tickets before use. Effect, grants entry to Heaven's Card and allows the holder to fight on behalf of their race. Description, do you long to bring an end to darkness and the endless invasions? Do you wish for your race to stand proudly above all others? Then step onto the battlefield. Daniel had never heard of this item in any of his previous lives. It was presumably an exceptionally rare special item. He stored the ticket away and turned his gaze toward the other battlefields. The moment Redroth died, the remaining 4 Shadowken legendary grade experts immediately panicked.
Despicable humans.
You actually ganged up on Lord Redroth. Damn it. They have 6 powerhouses now and we only have 4. We can't win this. We need to find a way to retreat. Carodion and Tiana had already locked onto their next targets. Daniel and Carodion joined forces and swiftly intervened in another battlefield. Godspeed. In an instant, Daniel appeared behind a mid-stage Shadowken powerhouse. Wind's Embrace. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Minus 76,494,668. Minus 76,499,494. Minus 78,464,664. Carodion and Tiana attacked at the same time, striking from left and right as their long swords came down together. Minus 167,976,494. Minus 57,979,677. Weak point hit. Under the combined bombardment of the two of them, the indestructible substance inside that Shadowkin expert was instantly drained away. Karodion and Tiana withdrew in perfect coordination, their swords already pulled back. The final blow had to be left for Daniel. Daniel's thunder prison continued raging on. A few seconds later, the Shadowkin expert's HP was completely reduced to 0, and his body turned to ash beneath the lightning.
Ding.
You have slain the Shadowkin commander, Hobart, legendary grade, high stage. Obtained, high divinity fragment, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained, abyss hell demon armor, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained, bloodthirst warboots, legendary grade. ×1. Contribution points plus 350,000. Gold coins plus 280,000. My lord. Very soon, Karodion's voice rang out again from the distance. Following the trail of contribution points, Daniel looked over and saw that Karodion, Tiana, and Eliris had already completely suppressed another Shadowkin powerhouse. The Shadowkin expert was on his last breath. The immortal singularity within his body had been fully exhausted, and only the final blow remained. Daniel teleported over and raised his hand, loosing an arrow without hesitation. Etherlance. A golden arrow of light instantly pierced through the Shadowkin skull. -79,464,944.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin commander. Obtained, intermediate divinity fragment, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained, dark breath battle armor, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained, black fiend warblade, legendary grade. ×1. Contribution points plus 200,000. Gold coins plus 180,000. Daniel's expression remained calm. The rewards were decent, but nothing extraordinary. At this moment, only the last two Shadowkin powerhouses remained on the battlefield. They attempted to break through and escape, but Cole and Upton held them down without giving them any room to move. Both Shadowkin experts had already been beaten until their auras were incredibly weak. They were exhausted, like spent arrows at the end of their flight. All the human powerhouses turned their eyes toward Daniel. Those two Shadowkin were looking at him as well, their eyes filled with hatred. Cough, cough. You insects won't stay arrogant for much longer. One of them spat through gritted teeth. Our sovereign will definitely avenge us. That's right. Our sovereign will surely trample the human race into the ground and wipe every last one of you out, the other sneered coldly. A faint smile also rose at the corner of Daniel's lips. Arrow storm. Arrows fell like meteors from the sky, piercing through both of their bodies. -76,494,646. -78,636,494.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin commander. Obtained lower divinity fragment, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained infernal bracers, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained infernal war armor, legendary grade. ×1. Contribution points plus 90,000. Gold coins plus 120,000.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin commander. Obtained intermediate divinity fragment, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained infernal helm, legendary grade. ×1. Obtained swift force greaves, legendary grade. ×1. Contribution points plus 130,000. Gold coins plus 150,000. At the same time, a world announcement resounded throughout the entire stellar world. Server-wide announcement. Player Faustus of World Region number 616 has successfully suppressed the disturbance in Luminera's 5-star Abyss Rift. Achievement completed. Humanity's Dawn Star, legendary grade. The announcement rang out 3 times in succession, golden text flashing before the eyes of every player. The world channel instantly exploded. By the gods, we were still gathering outside the Abyss Rift entrance, and Great God Faustus was already done? And it was a 5-star one?
Sigh.
I don't even know why anymore, but I feel like I'm starting to get used to Great God Faustus doing things no one can possibly predict. Exactly. He's already managed to massacre tens of thousands of monsters in one go. I genuinely feel like there's nothing he can't do. Maybe the only area where I can go 50-50 with Great God Faustus is charisma. Wake up. You're not even comparable to a single strand of his hair.
Ding.
Achievement obtained. Humanity's Dawn Star. Achievement reward. Ascension Stone, legendary grade. ×1. Daniel glanced at the 2 rainbow-colored crystals gleaming in his hand, then decisively sold them.
Ding.
You have sold item, Ascension Stone, legendary grade, to Doom Guild for 1 copper coin, triggering million-fold boost. The item sold belongs to the special materials category. Please choose quality boost / quantity boost. Quality boost.
Ding.
Congratulations. You have obtained 1 gold coin. You have obtained Ascendant Starstone, supreme grade. ×1. Looking at the rainbow-colored crystal now resting inside his backpack, Daniel's lips curled slightly upward. It was the same kind of Ascendant Starstone he had previously used on Eliris. It could grant an NPC the potential to advance to supreme grade, removing all obstacles during the promotion process. Still, he had no immediate idea who to use it on, so he simply stored it away for the time being. The battle in the 5-star Abyss Rift had come to an end. But Daniel was not satisfied. Since they were already here, he might as well tear the heavens of this Abyss Rift apart completely. He would destroy the Shadowkin rifts and make it impossible for them to invade the continent of Etheria for a long time to come. Continue deeper. His voice was calm as still water. Shatter the Shadowkin's sweet dreams. As you command. The six figures rose into the air once more and shot toward the deeper regions of the Abyss Rift. In his previous lives, Daniel had ventured deep into the Abyss Rift countless times. He knew every inch of this place like the back of his hand. The interior of the Abyss Rift was a world unto itself. The higher the star rating, the larger the territory it occupied. Because the Watchers outside were suppressing it, the Shadowkin were unable to break the seal and escape. They could only slaughter one another endlessly within this lightless world. It was precisely because of this that after the 9-star Abyss Rift riot began, the first thing the Shadowkin did was launch an internal war of unification. The Shadowkin sovereign, Baal, sought to consolidate all Shadowkin's strength before launching a full-scale invasion of the human empire. Humanity had to take advantage of the Shadowkin's internal chaos and suppress them with all its might. Otherwise, the day the Shadowkin completed their unification would be the day catastrophe descended upon the empire. Daniel already had a few ideas in mind. Leading the group of human powerhouses, he flew toward the region where the 6-star Abyss Rift was located. Looking up, they saw a pitch-black giant city standing at the edge of sight. Its walls were covered in spikes and skulls. On either side of the city gate stood 2 demonic statues over 100 meters tall, radiating a suffocating pressure. The moment the human powerhouses appeared, 6 terrifying auras burst out from the city. So, it's humans. Have you come here to die? Ha ha ha. If you've come intending to betray humanity, then perhaps we can consider taking you in. Enough nonsense. All humans deserve to die. Kill them. The 6 Shadowkin legendary grade experts quickly reached a consensus and lunged at them at once. The blood feud between the two races was too deep to measure. It was either your death or mine. Karo Dion fought 1 against 2 at the same time, blocking both a high-rank and an early-rank Shadowkin expert. Tiana faced a mid-rank Shadowkin. Cole and Upton entangled 2 early-rank opponents. Eliris was also locked in fierce combat with another legendary grade early-rank Shadowkin. Daniel brought Marco with him and headed straight for the early-rank Shadowkin who was being held back by Karo Dion. Wind's Embrace. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Etherlance. Minus 75,494,646. Minus 75,646,466. Minus 79,458,619. Within mere seconds, that early-rank Shadowkin was killed.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin commander. Obtained Lower Divinity Fragment, Legendary Grade. X1. Obtained Demon General Bracers, Legendary Grade. X1. Obtained Demon General War Armor, Legendary Grade. X1. Contribution points plus 30,000. Gold coins plus 120,000. Daniel did not stop. Bringing Marco with him, he headed straight for Tiana's battlefield. Wind's Embrace. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Marco and Tiana attacked at the same time. With Daniel supporting from the side, the mid-rank Shadowkin was quickly slain as well.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin commander. Obtained Higher Divinity Fragment, Legendary Grade. X1. Obtained Infernal War Armor, Legendary Grade. X1. Obtained Infernal War Boots, Legendary Grade. X1. Contribution points plus 180,000. Gold coins plus 210,000. You too, go help Karo Dion. Daniel spoke to Tiana and Marco. The two of them nodded and immediately shot toward Karo Dion's position. Facing 2 opponents alone, Karo Dion was not at a disadvantage, but he was still under considerable pressure. The moment the 2 fresh reinforcements joined the battle, the situation reversed instantly. The human powerhouses began suppressing the 2 Shadowkin on the other side, and the scales of victory rapidly tilted in their favor. Daniel only took 1 glance before putting his mind at ease. His figure flashed, and he appeared beside Eliris. Wind's Embrace. Serpent's Thunder Cell. With perfect coordination, Eliris followed up with a sword slash. Minus 75,499,644. Minus 76,599,565. Minus 34,497,644. A few seconds later, that early-stage Shadowkin powerhouse died. However, before Daniel could even check the loot, a world announcement instantly shattered his train of thought. Urgent global announcement. The Vice Watcher of the 9-star Abyss Rift, legendary grade powerhouse Lucian, has fallen in battle. The Vice Watcher of the 9-star Abyss Rift, legendary grade powerhouse Evelyn, has fallen in battle. The Vice Watcher of the 9-star Abyss Rift, legendary grade powerhouse Theodore, has fallen in battle. The 3 announcements exploded one after another like 3 tolls of a funeral bell. Daniel tightened his grip on Stellar Wrath, his knuckles turning white. The danger of a 9-star Abyss Rift far exceeded imagination. Just how many Shadowkin powerhouses had gathered there to actually cause 3 human watchers to fall at once? He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. But on second thought, this might also be a good thing. The more legendary grade powerhouses died, the stronger the forces under his command would become. When he revived those human powerhouses one by one, then appeared on the battlefield with an army made entirely of legendary grade experts, the expression on that Shadowkin overlord Bale's face would surely be priceless. A faint smile curled at Daniel's lips, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Daniel pulled out the banner of valor, embroidered with stars, from his backpack. The flag rippled violently in the dark winds of the abyss. Prompt: spend 30,000 gold coins to condense the lingering souls of the 3 fallen legendary-grade human powerhouses? Yes. Prompt: soul condensation successful. The item is now temporarily storing the lingering souls of Lucian, legendary grade, high tier; Evelyn, legendary grade, mid tier; and Theodore, legendary grade, low tier. Daniel continued the process, his expression calm as still water. Prompt: spend 30,000 gold coins to convert the lingering souls of the 3 powerhouses into relics? Yes. Prompt: soul conversion complete. He put the battle banner back into his backpack, then cast the forbidden spell Seraphic Revival. Prompt: spend 30,000 gold coins to revive the 3 human powerhouses? Yes.
Ding.
Successfully revived 3 human powerhouses. 3 faint silhouettes gradually solidified within the light. When the radiance faded, the 3 armored human powerhouses opened their eyes at the same time. Lucian was the first to recover his senses. He lowered his head to look at his own hands, then glanced at the surrounding scene. Bewilderment flashed through his eyes, but a moment later, he dropped to one knee. Lucian is willing to brave fire and water for you, my lord. Evelyn and Theodore followed suit, kneeling on one knee as well. We are willing to brave fire and water for you, my lord. Daniel nodded and pointed toward the distant battlefield, where the fighting was still raging. I'll trouble you all to heavily injure those Shadowkin powerhouses. Leave the finishing blow to me. As you wish. The 3 figures turned into streaks of light and shot straight into enemy lines. At the edge of the battlefield, the surviving Shadowkin warriors witnessed everything. Their eyes widened, their faces full of disbelief. What's going on? How did 3 more legendary-grade powerhouses appear in the blink of an eye? Where did they come from? Could that human be some kind of spatial mage? This isn't right. If they had enough power to crush the Shadowkin stronghold outright, there'd be no reason for them to hide these people until now. Something is wrong with those newly appeared powerhouses. I don't know the exact reason, but this information must be reported to the Overlord. No one paid any attention to their inward cries of alarm. Lucian, Evelyn, and Theodore had already charged into the battlefield, standing shoulder to shoulder with Caro Dion and the others. 8 against 3. This was a battle with no suspense whatsoever. In just a few dozen breaths, the 3 Shadowkin powerhouses who had been struggling desperately were beaten to the brink of death. My lord, now is the time to strike. Caro Dion blasted one high-tier Shadowkin powerhouse to the verge of death. Daniel's figure instantly appeared in front of that Shadowkin powerhouse. Etherlance. A golden bolt of light pierced straight through its skull. -84,454,634.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained Intermediate Divinity Fragment Legendary Grade. ×1. Obtained Wrath Demon Armor Legendary Grade. ×1. Obtained Wrath Demon Blade Legendary Grade. ×1. Contribution points plus 130,000. Gold coins plus 160,000. He did not stop, spreading his wings as he swept toward another section of the battlefield. Caro Dion, Lucian, and Tiana had already cornered the final 2 Shadowkin powerhouses in the center. The 2 of them were covered in blood, and the immortal singularity within their bodies had long since been exhausted. They were only one last strike away from death. Wind's embrace. Invisible chains of wind surged out of the void, binding the 2 Shadowkin powerhouses tightly in place. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Dark clouds gathered as tens of thousands of thunder serpents poured down from above. -76,645,848. -76,964,646. The last 2 Shadowkin powerhouses died on the spot.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained Intermediate Divinity Fragment Legendary Grade. ×1. Obtained Greed Armor Legendary Grade. ×1. Obtained Greed Spear Legendary Grade. ×1. Contribution points plus 130,000. Gold coins plus 190,000.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained Superior Divinity Fragment Legendary Grade. ×1. Obtained Helm of Pride Legendary Grade. ×1. Obtained Shield of Pride Legendary Grade. ×1. Obtained Heaven's Car Ticket ×1. Contribution points plus 260,000. Gold coins plus 350,000. Daniel stored all the spoils in his backpack, then lifted his eyes toward the pitch-black Shadowkin castle in the distance. The walls were packed shoulder to shoulder with Shadowkin warriors, numbering in the millions. They watched helplessly as their legendary-grade powerhouses fell one after another. Their eyes were filled with terror, yet they still gripped their weapons tightly and refused to retreat even a single step. Daniel's face remained expressionless as he raised Stellar Wrath. Arrow Storm. Shattering Comet. Etherlance. Serpent's Thunder Cell. The 4 skills bloomed at the same time, transforming into over 1,000 attacks that poured down like an apocalyptic natural disaster. Arrows, fire rain, light spears, and thunder serpents wove together into a net of death that blanketed the entire castle. -79,916,761. minus 79,646,494, minus 77,346,949. Crimson damage numbers cascaded down like a waterfall. The city walls collapsed amid deafening roars. Arrow towers turned to ashes in the flames. The millions of Shadowkin warriors were crushed like ants beneath that rain of death.
Ding.
Killed Shadowkin elite grade times 976. Obtained gold coins plus 1,360,000. Obtained gluttony armor, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained demon warblade, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained infernal bracers, legendary grade, times 1.
Ding.
Killed Shadowkin warrior. Obtained gold coins plus 2,790,000. The system notifications surged in like a tidal wave, and Daniel directly turned off the repeated prompts. An entire castle of 1,000,000 Shadowkin. Slaughtered by one man alone. Global announcement. Player Faustus of World Zone 616 has successfully destroyed a 6-star Abyss Rift Shadowkin castle. Achievement completed. Pillar of Humanity. The announcement rang out 3 times in a row, like 3 bolts of lightning tearing through dark clouds. The world channel instantly exploded.
What do you mean by this?
Big shot. You're only making the rest of us look useless. Lord Faustus, don't do this to us. Leave at least a little soup for us to drink, okay? I just crawled out of a 1-star Abyss Rift after dying there. We didn't even get a clear look at what the Shadowkin boss looked like before our whole party was wiped. It's infuriating comparing people to people. We're all old players from the same launch batch, yet we nearly die clearing a 1-star Abyss Rift, while he treats it like eating and drinking. Come on, of all people to compare yourself to, you chose Lord Faustus?
Ding.
You have completed the achievement, Pillar of Humanity. Achievement reward, Ascension Stone, legendary grade, times 3. Daniel's eyes lit up. He had already obtained 1 Ascension Stone back in the 5-star Abyss Rift. With these 3 added in, he now had a total of 4, just enough to give several of the legendary grade powerhouses under his command the potential to advance to Supreme Grade.
Ding.
You sold Ascension Stone legendary grade times 3 to Doom Guild for 1 copper coin, triggering millionfold boost. The item sold belongs to the special materials category. Please choose quality boost / quantity boost. Quality boost.
Ding.
Congratulations. You obtained 3 gold coins. You obtained Ascended Starstone Supreme Grade times 3. He summoned Upton, Marco, Cole, and Theodore, distributing the 4 Ascendant Starstones among them. Raise your strength as quickly as possible to deal with the invasion of the Shadowkin and the non-human races. The 4 powerhouses accepted the crystals gratefully and used them at once. Soon, flashes of light passed through their bodies, and their auras surged sharply upward. Upton opened his eyes and felt the power coursing within him. He could clearly sense that he had taken a massive step closer to that final threshold. His eyes were filled with excitement. Thank you, my lord. A faint smile appeared on Daniel's lips. Among the 8 powerhouses under his command, Carodion and Lucian were high tier, while the other 6 had all advanced to the mid-tier. Even across the entire empire, this was a force that could not be ignored. As expected, war is the fastest path to greater strength. He raised his head and looked deeper into the Abyss Rift. Move quickly. We're heading to the next one. Yes, my lord. 7-star Abyss Rift. The moment Daniel and the others appeared above the Shadowkin castle, 7 terrifying auras shot up from within the city. 2 high-tier, 2 mid-tier, and 3 low-tier. The 7 legendary grade Shadowkin powerhouses stood in a row, their faces dark as they stared at them. The leading high-tier Shadowkin ground his teeth. What is the meaning of this? Daniel did not answer.
Kill.
His voice was calm as still water. In the next instant, the 8 human powerhouses shot forward like unsheathed blades. This battle began quickly and ended even more quickly. Only a few minutes later, all 7 legendary grade Shadowkin powerhouses had fallen. The several million warriors inside the Shadowkin castle were completely reduced to ashes beneath Daniel's rain of arrows.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained Superior Divinity Fragment, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained Wrath Battle Armor, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained Greed Bracers, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained Heaven's Car Ticket, times 1. Contribution points plus 260,000. Gold coins plus 360,000.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained Superior Divinity Fragment, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained Gluttony Helm, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained Mana Bracers, legendary grade, times 1. Obtained Heaven's Car Ticket, times 1. Contribution points plus 240,000. Gold coins plus 360,000.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained gold coins plus 160,000. Obtained Infernal Armor, legendary grade, times 1.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained gold coins plus 170,000. Obtained Infernal Blade, legendary grade, times 1.
Ding.
Shadowkin Commander slain. Obtained gold coins plus 170,000. Obtained Greed Grasp, legendary grade, times 1. Global announcement. Player Faustus of World Zone 616 has successfully destroyed a 7-star Abyss Rift castle. Achievement completed. Demon Adjudicator.
Ding.
Achievement reward obtained. Ascension Stone, legendary grade, ×4. Daniel's breathing stalled slightly. This time, he had truly struck it rich. The achievement reward had actually yielded so many ascension stones. These were priceless treasures capable of helping someone break past their limits and ascend to a higher realm.
Ding.
You sold Ascension Stone, legendary grade, ×4 to Doom Guild for 1 copper coin, triggering millionfold boost. The item sold belongs to the special materials category. Please choose quality boost/quantity boost. Quality boost.
Ding.
Congratulations. You obtained 4 gold coins. You obtained Ascendant Starstone Supreme Grade, ×4. Raise your strength as quickly as possible. He handed the Ascendant Starstones to Dion, Lucian, Tiana, and Evelyn. The 4 powerhouses accepted the crystals, excitement flashing through their eyes. Thank you, my lord. Golden light flashed, and the 4 auras surged upward at the same time. Dion opened his eyes, and an invisible pressure spread out from his body. That was the aura of a transcendent powerhouse. With the enhancement of the Ascendant Starstone, he had actually advanced directly from a legendary grade high-tier powerhouse to a legendary grade transcendent powerhouse. Evelyn, Lucian, and Tiana also completed their advancement, becoming standouts among legendary grade high-tier powerhouses. Lucian in particular could feel that it would not be long before he, too, broke through to the transcendent realm. As Daniel gazed at the team under his command, boundless ambition surged in his heart. 1 transcendent, 3 high-tier, 4 mid-tier. Such a force was enough to shake the world. But he was not satisfied. At present, whether in the number or quality of the powerhouses under his command, he was still far from the point where he could truly look down on all existence. The next target, the 8-star Abyss Rift. We are willing to follow you through life and death, my lord. All 8 struck their chests in salute, blazing battle intent burning in their eyes. 8-star Abyss Rift. Within Godskar, the human and Shadowkin powerhouses were locked in fierce combat. The 8 powerhouses under Daniel's command were fighting 9 legendary-grade Shadowkin powerhouses in a chaotic melee. The numbers on both sides were close, but the humans had the transcendent powerhouse Dion anchoring their side, so they held the upper hand from the very beginning. Soon, Daniel found the perfect moment and cut across into the battlefield. Wind's Embrace. Serpent's Thunder Cell. -75,646,499. -79,646,164. His appearance was like the final boulder that crushed the camel's back. Within minutes, 3 low-tier Shadowkin powerhouses were bound and slain. The 2 mid-tier powerhouses likewise failed to hold out for long under the siege of 5 human powerhouses. Next came that high-tier Shadowkin Grand Lord. Wind's Embrace. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Dion and Lucian struck at the same time, their 2 swords coming from left and right, driving that high-tier powerhouse into a desperate corner. A streak of golden light shot forward at an angle that could not be evaded, plunging straight into the Shadowkin powerhouse's brain. -84,634,646.
Ding.
Shadowkin Grand Lord slain. Obtained Superior Divinity Fragment Legendary Grade, ×1. Obtained Lustthorn Legendary Grade, ×1. Obtained Lustblade Legendary Grade, ×1. Obtained Heaven's Car Ticket ×1. Contribution points plus 380,000. Gold coins plus 450,000. In the end, only that transcendent Shadowkin Grand Lord remained on the battlefield. The 8 human powerhouses surrounded him completely. Dion met him head-on. Lucian and Tiana attacked from the left and right, while Elyrus and the others waited for openings to harass and strike. And as for Daniel, his Wind's Embrace never stopped for even a moment. 1 minute. Just 1 minute. That transcendent Shadowkin powerhouse died in hatred beneath endless restraint and relentless siege.
Ding.
Shadowkin Grand Lord slain. Obtained Superior Divinity Fragment Legendary Grade, ×1. Obtained Abyss Battle Armor Legendary Grade, ×1. Obtained Abyss Protection Legendary Grade, ×1. Obtained Heaven's Car Ticket ×1. Contribution points plus 450,000. Gold coins plus 510,000. Daniel did not stop. He flew above the Shadowkin castle and raised stellar wrath. Arrow Storm. Shattering Comet. Etherlance. Serpent's Thunder Cell. 1,000,000 Shadowkin warriors turned to ash beneath the rain of arrows.
Ding.
Shadowkin Elite slain. Obtained gold coins plus 10,460,000. Obtained Infernal Battle Armor Legendary Grade, ×1.
Ding.
Shadowkin Warrior slain. Obtained gold coins plus 3,240,000. Obtained Infernal Venom Sword Legendary Grade, ×1.
Ding.
Shadowkin Priest slain. Obtained gold coins plus 4,640,000. Obtained Demon Hall Bracers Legendary Grade, ×1. Global announcement. Player Faustus of World Zone 616 has successfully destroyed an 8-star Abyss Rift castle. Achievement completed. Hell Inquisitor.
Ding.
Achievement reward obtained. Ascension Stone, Legendary Grade, ×8. Daniel stared at the system prompt, momentarily dazed. Another 8 Ascension Stones.
Ding.
You sold Ascension Stone Legendary Grade, ×8 to Doom Guild for 1 copper coin, triggering millionfold boost. The item sold belongs to the Special Materials category. Please choose Quality Boost quantity boost. Quality boost.
Ding.
Congratulations. You obtained 8 gold coins. You obtained Ascendant Starstone Supreme Grade, times 8. As a top-tier material, the Ascendant Starstone could actually be used repeatedly, and repeated use could greatly accelerate the speed of advancement. However, very few people ever used it that way. The reason was simple: it was far too difficult to obtain. But for Daniel, things were different. He had plenty of opportunities and channels to acquire this supreme treasure, and through the system, he could even amplify it into Supreme Grade. Even if he used all of them to help the powerhouses under his command advance, he would not feel the slightest bit of regret. In the crumbling world they now faced, strength was king. Looking at the 8 Ascendant Starstones in his hand, Daniel's lips curled upward. This meant that he would now command 4 Transcendent Elites and 4 High-Tier Elites. Before the 8-star Abyss Rift, he had possessed 1 Transcendent, 3 High-Tier, and 4 Mid-Tier powerhouses. Now he had 4 Transcendent and 4 High-Tier. The speed of this rise in strength could only be described as a one-step ascent to the heavens. He distributed the Ascendant Starstones one by one. Golden flashes lit up in succession, and each burst of light signified that another powerhouse had undergone a complete rebirth. When the final ray of golden light faded, Daniel looked at the team before him. A force made up of 4 transcendent powerhouses and 4 high-tier powerhouses, and boundless ambition surged in his chest. Next, we head to the 9-star Abyss Rift to meet those Shadowkin scum. 9-star Abyss Rift, Infernal Fortress. God's car was like a giant overturned bowl, covering the entire sky. This battlefield was vast enough to suffocate the soul, stretching across nearly the whole sky above the Abyss Rift. Every few minutes, golden blood dripped from God's car and poured down upon the earth like a torrential storm. Those were the traces left behind by fallen legendary grade powerhouses. How many experts were fighting within it? How brutal had the battle become? No one knew. Just then, 2 corpses of legendary grade powerhouses suddenly fell out of God's car, crashing into the city below and kicking up clouds of dust. Glory eternal to the Overlord. These human powerhouses are ridiculously hard to kill. They're stubborn to the bitter end. No problem. Our Shadowkin have the advantage in numbers. There's no need to panic at all. Just wait before long. The battle flags of the Shadowkin will be planted in every corner of the Etheria continent. The Shadowkin warriors looked up at that twisted sky, their fists clenched tight. At the edge of God's car, 2 figures fell from the sky in a wretched state and crashed into the human camp. Julian and Hawk were both covered in blood, barely managing to steady themselves as they supported each other. Julian's left arm hung limply at an unnatural angle, while Hawk had a deep wound across his chest, so deep that bone could be seen. Golden blood was still seeping out without end. My lords, are you all right? How serious are your injuries? More than a dozen human powerhouses gathered around them. Every one of them was wounded. Some had lost a leg, some had gone blind in one eye, and some had half their bodies burned into charred black ruin. The heavily injured lay sprawled on the ground, unable to move even a single finger without difficulty. In this great war between the 2 races, the human side had deployed 40 powerhouses, while the Shadowkin had sent more than 80. And on the Shadowkin side, there was even Baal, the Overlord, a legendary grade, transcendent peak powerhouse. From the very beginning of the clash, the humans had been suppressed by the Shadowkin. By now, 3 human powerhouses had already died, more than a dozen had been gravely wounded, and another 20 were still fighting desperately against the Shadowkin within God's car. Julian coughed up several mouthfuls of golden blood, his eyes filled with grief. This time, the Shadowkin are simply too powerful. The human race has almost no hope left. Hawk took over in a hoarse voice. Our people are still forcing themselves to hold on, but not many of them can keep going much longer. At this point, this high-tier legendary grade powerhouse who had lived for centuries actually had red-rimmed eyes. We have failed those comrades who died in battle, failed to trust the people of the human race placed in us. Silence. The scene fell into a deathly silence. The dozen or so human powerhouses lowered their heads. Some had red eyes. Some collapsed weakly to the ground. Others stared up at that twisted sky, their eyes full of despair. How did the human race come to this? Julian's grief-stricken voice echoed over the empty wasteland. The human race had not been lacking in powerhouses to begin with, but Winterhold in the northern frontier had tied down a considerable portion of their strength, while the Abyss Rifts in the south also required defenders. These 40 were already the limit of what the Empire could mobilize. If they all fell here, then nothing would stand in the Shadowkin's way any longer. Their iron hooves would sweep across the entire human empire. And without reinforcements, Winterhold in the north being breached by the sixfold host would only be a matter of time. When that happened, the human race would be plunged into an abyss of eternal damnation. A powerhouse wrapped all over in bandages suddenly stood up, his eyes burning with resolute fire. I cannot stand by and watch the inheritance of countless human ancestors be buried in our hands. His voice was hoarse, yet firm. In this battle, I am willing to perish together with the Shadowkin and shed my last drop of blood for the human race. Before his words had even fully fallen, golden flames ignited across his body. He was burning his immortal singularity, burning his very life. He raised his head toward God's car, a cold light flashing in his eyes, then leapt into that twisted sky.
Boom.
A world-shaking explosion erupted from within God's car, and even the distorted space itself rippled violently from the blast. The self-destruction of a powerhouse was terrifying beyond measure. This was the human race's final stubborn defiance. My friends, I'll be going ahead as well. Another powerhouse rose to his feet, golden flames blazing fiercely around him. She gave the others an elegant bow, then turned resolutely and charged into God's car. Boom! 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 One explosion after another rang out from within God's car. With every blast, the corpse of a Shadowkin powerhouse fell from the sky, smashing into the black earth and throwing up towering clouds of dust. Then let our flesh and blood forge the eternal immortality of the human race. The remaining powerhouses exchanged glances and simultaneously ignited the flames of life upon their bodies. Streak after streak of golden figures shot across the sky like meteors, hurling themselves into that twisted battlefield. The explosions continued without end, while Shadowkin corpses rained down like falling stars. And from within God's car also came the furious roar of the Shadowkin overlord, Baal. No! Damn you humans! The day my Shadowkin set foot upon the continent will be the day your human race is exterminated. Daniel unfurled his eternal dark gold wings. In the howling dark winds of the Abyss Rift, the dark gold feathers snapped loudly in the air. Leading the 8 legendary-grade powerhouses under his command, he shot toward the 9-star Abyss Rift. This time, he intended to wipe out the Shadowkin threat once and for all. 9-star Abyss Rift. When Daniel descended upon this land shrouded in darkness, the sight before him made his heart tremble slightly. The sky looked as though it had been torn apart. A colossal God's car hung overhead, so vast it was suffocating to behold. Like an inverted giant bowl, it covered the entire heavens. Within that twisted expanse of space, bursts of multicolored light flashed from time to time, the aftershocks of clashes between legendary-grade powerhouses. Every few moments, golden blood rained down from the battlefield above, pouring onto the scorched black earth like a storm. At that very moment, one world announcement after another exploded across the sky like funeral bells. Emergency global announcement. Deputy Garrison Commander of the 9-star Abyss Rift, human legendary-grade powerhouse, Hawk, has fallen in battle. Emergency global announcement. Deputy Garrison Commander of the 9-star Abyss Rift, human legendary-grade powerhouse, Julian, has fallen in battle. Emergency global announcement. Deputy Garrison Commander of the 9-star Abyss Rift, human legendary-grade powerhouse, Bruno, has fallen in battle.
1, 2,
5. A total of 12. Since the launch of the game, there had never been such a dense succession of announcements reporting the deaths of legendary-grade powerhouses. Each announcement marked the end of a life. Each toll of the bell meant the loss of one of humanity's greatest warriors. Standing at the edge of the God's car, Daniel gazed at that distorted sky, the killing intent in his eyes nearly solid enough to take form. You go in first and assist the human powerhouses in holding back the Shadowkin. Caro Dion, Lucian, Tiana, and the others nodded. In the next instant, they transformed into 8 streaks of light and plunged straight into the twisted battlefield. Daniel withdrew his gaze and took the banner of valor from his backpack. Stars were embroidered across the banner's surface, and in the dark winds of the Abyss Rift, it fluttered sharply. Closing his eyes, he sensed the remnant souls of the 12 fallen human powerhouses who had just perished. They seemed to still be drifting in the wind. Notice. Spend 1.2 billion gold coins to condense the remnant souls of 12 human legendary-grade powerhouses? Yes. Golden light spread out from the war banner like an invisible net, gathering those remnant souls one by one before they could fade away. Notice. Remnant soul condensation successful. Remnant souls captured. Hawk, Julian, Bruno, 12 in total. Daniel opened his eyes and continued. Notice. Spend 1.2 billion gold coins to convert the remnant souls of these 12 powerhouses into relics? Yes. Notice. Remnant soul conversion complete. He stowed the banner back into his inventory and cast Seraphic Revival. Soon, pale golden light began to swirl before him, like sacred flames waiting to be kindled. Notice. Spend 1.2 billion gold coins to revive 12 human powerhouses? Yes. Golden radiance erupted before his eyes. One figure after another stepped out from within the light.
Hawk,
Julian,
Bruno.
Every one of them wore a dazed expression, lowering their heads to look at their own hands. Then, in unison, they dropped to one knee before Daniel. We pay our respects, my lord. Daniel nodded, his gaze sweeping across them one by one. Among the 12, 4 were high-grade, 5 were mid-grade, and 3 were low-grade. Together with the 4 transcendent and 4 high-grade powerhouses he had already commanded, he now had 20 legendary-grade powerhouses under him. Follow me into the God's car. His voice was calm as still water. Kill every Shadowkin invader. Before the final word had even fallen, he had already spread his wings and shot toward that twisted sky. The 12 resurrected powerhouses followed close behind, turning into 12 streaks of light as they entered the God's car. Outside the God's car, the surviving human powerhouses who witnessed everything were all dumbstruck. Daniel's arrival with his legion of powerhouses had already left the human defenders at the edge of the God's car utterly stunned. They had never imagined that humanity had been hiding so many high-grade combatants. But what came next robbed them completely of speech. Those comrades who had just moments ago died heroically before their eyes blowing themselves up to perish together with the enemy were now standing once more, alive and breathing, atop the ritual platform. Familiar figures. Faces burned deep into memory. They stepped back into this blood-soaked sky through golden light. By the gods. An old veteran muttered under his breath, nearly dropping the long sword in his hand. By the gods. I'm not seeing things, am I? Weren't those Julian and Hawk just now? I saw Cole's chest pierced through by a demon blade with my own eyes. How is he back? No one could answer. Only stunned gazes passed silently from face to face. Not just them Carodian, Tia. Weren't they dead long ago? Have we fallen into some Shadowkin nightmare? Are we all seeing the same illusion? Could it be some kind of resurrection method? We all saw that man pull them back from the altar. Resurrection. That young man can actually revive legendary-grade powerhouses. The human warriors looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and bewilderment. Inside the gods' car, with the arrival of Carodian and the others, humanity's crumbling battle line finally gained a chance to recover. What stunned the human powerhouses even more, however, was that these newcomers were all old acquaintances. Carodian? Is that really you? Weren't you? Lady Tiana? Didn't you fall defending Winterhold? And Evelyn too? You were clearly just. Bathed in blood from head to toe, the elderly Ansel swept his gaze over Carodian and the others, his heart surging like a storm-tossed sea. These people had clearly died in battle. So, why had they appeared here again? But he quickly noticed something strange. Carodian's eyes were empty and cold. When he looked at Ansel, there was not the slightest trace of their former friendship, only pure composure. They've probably been resurrected by someone. Ansel murmured in a low voice, his tone heavy with complicated emotion. But they've also lost all their memories. While the human side was still reeling in shock, chaos had already erupted among the Shadowkin. That's impossible. Weren't those humans already dead? How are they standing again? And their auras. Those 4 are transcendent legendary grade? What kind of joke is this? 4 transcendents and 4 high grades. Where did humanity suddenly pull so many powerhouses from? The Shadowkin formation began to waver. The numerical advantage they had been so proud of vanished in an instant. And at the deepest part of the battlefield, the Shadowkin Overlord Ball was currently locked in combat with 2 human transcendent powerhouses. Even so, he held the absolute upper hand, for he was a peak transcendent legendary grade existence, the strongest among all the warriors of both races present on the battlefield. But when his gaze swept over the newly arrived human reinforcements, his expression finally changed. Because he recognized several of those faces. Some of them were people he had personally slain. And yet now, they stood there alive upon the battlefield once more, their auras even stronger than they had been in life. That's impossible. Ball let out a furious roar. With a single slash, he forced back the opponent before him, then fixed his gaze on those resurrected human powerhouses. I cut off your heads with my own hands. I watched you get blasted into dust with my own eyes. No one answered him. Only an even fiercer wave of attacks came crashing down like a flood. And just as Ball was barely managing to steady his footing, another 12 streaks of light appeared at the edge of the god's car. Daniel had returned to the battlefield, leading the 12 powerhouses he had just revived. Bale's pupils contracted sharply. He recognized every one of those 12 people. Every single one of them should have been a corpse long since dead. Even the shattered remains of their bodies were still scattered across the battlefield. What kind of joke is this? Ball felt an overwhelming sense of futility, as though all his efforts had come to nothing. He had spent an enormous price and paid grievous costs to slaughter the human powerhouses one by one. And now not only had all of them come back to life, they had even grown stronger? Worse still, who knew whether they might revive again after dying? By now, both sides had already suffered catastrophic losses in this battle. But at the sight of these familiar reinforcements, Ball hesitated. Kill every Shadowkin. Daniel's voice echoed through the god's car, cold and resolute. As you command, my lord. All 20 legendary-grade powerhouses answered in unison, like 20 unsheathed blades lunging toward their respective prey. The balance of the battlefield began to shift. Originally, the human side had fewer than 30 powerhouses desperately holding the line. Now, with the 20 reinforcements Daniel had brought, their total had exceeded 40. On the Shadowkin side, after round upon round of bloody fighting, they had only a little over 40 powerhouses left. The two sides were now evenly matched in number. But in terms of quality, the humans had 4 transcendent and 8 high-grade powerhouses, while most of the Shadowkin's top-tier combat strength had already been exhausted in the earlier slaughter. The scales of victory were visibly tilting toward humanity. Daniel did not remain at the edge of the battlefield to watch. With God's speed activated, his figure flashed continuously through the god's car, and in the blink of an eye he arrived at Carodian's side. Carodian was currently locked in battle with a Shadowkin high-grade powerhouse. Golden swordlight and dark crimson demonic flames intertwined, tearing crack after crack through the surrounding space. Daniel raised stellar wrath. Wind's embrace. Invisible chains of wind surged out from the void, binding that Shadowkin high-grade overlord in place. Pale golden runes flowed along the chains, each one containing an ancient law of wind. The Shadowkin overlord's eyes widened in shock as he discovered that he could not even move a finger. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Storm clouds gathered in an instant, and tens of thousands of lightning serpents poured down from the sky. Minus 79,746,644. Minus 79,667,421. Minus 76,646,164. Caro Dion raised the long sword in his hand high overhead, and a golden sword beam condensed from immortal singularity came crashing down. Divine judgment. Minus 279,667,946. Within only a few breaths, that Shadowkin high legendary grade powerhouse was reduced to ashes amid an unwilling howl.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin overlord. Obtained. High tier divinity fragment legendary grade. ×1. Obtained. Wrath Warblade legendary grade. ×1. Obtained. Wrath Warhammer legendary grade. ×1. Obtained. Heaven's Carpass ×1. Contribution points plus 400,000. Gold coins plus 500,000. Daniel did not pause. His gaze swept rapidly across the battlefield, locking onto one target after another. Go after the high grades first. Break open the situation as fast as possible, he said quickly to Caro Dion. As you command. Although those Shadowkin high-grade powerhouses could break free from Wind's embrace, every attempt to do so consumed a large amount of immortal singularity. Transcendent powerhouses, however, were different. They possessed enough methods and foundation to easily break his restraints. So for Daniel, killing high grades offered the greatest efficiency. The two of them worked together with perfect coordination, as though they were a single person. Daniel provided control and suppression. Caro Dion dealt devastating frontal damage. In the end, Daniel delivered the finishing blow.
2.
3. In less than half an hour, 15 Shadowkin high grades and 25 Shadowkin mid grades had fallen to their hands. At the deepest part of the battlefield, the Shadowkin Overlord Ball was being besieged by more than 20 human powerhouses. His body was covered in wounds, and purple blood seeped constantly from the gashes. Even a peak transcendent powerhouse could not hold out forever when surrounded by dozens of legendary-grade opponents. His counterattacks were growing weaker and weaker, and his defenses more and more fragile. Daniel turned his gaze toward this final boss and cast a detection skill. Shadowkin Overlord Ball, peak transcendent, legendary grade. Level. HP. Attack. Defense. Skills. Description: the Overlord of the Shadowkin, a supreme powerhouse at peak transcendent legendary grade. He commands the Shadowkin, rules over 36 Shadowkin overlords, and controls the immortal power hidden in the deepest reaches of the abyss. Daniel frowned slightly. This was the first time he had encountered an enemy whose detailed attributes could not be read by his detection skill. As expected of the Shadowkin overlord, kill him, and half of humanity's crisis will be resolved. He narrowed his eyes, and a burning gleam flashed within them. He could not help but wonder what kind of treasure a peak transcendent boss might drop. A few minutes later, Ball finally could not endure any longer. Driven into a corner by the human powerhouses, the immortal singularity within his body was nearly exhausted, and there were too many wounds on him to count. Every exchange of blows left a fresh wound on his body. Lord Faustus. Caro Dion shouted loudly. Daniel's figure instantly appeared before Ball. Wind's embrace. Serpent's thunder cell. Minus 78,646,491. Minus 79,146,464. Minus 76,319,721. Ball was bound fast by the chains of wind, utterly unable to move. He glared viciously at Daniel, his eyes filled with humiliation and unwillingness. You damned insect. All you know is how to hide in the back and rely on cheap tricks. Those were the last words he left in this world. Boom. The body of the Shadowkin Overlord Ball exploded beneath the lightning, shattering into countless fragments across the sky.
Ding.
You have slain the Shadowkin Overlord Boss Ball. Gained EXP plus 3 billion, contribution points plus 1 million, gold coins plus 2 million. Obtained, high-tier divinity fragment, ×10. Obtained, Heaven's Carpass, ×10. Obtained SSS rank class forbidden art, permafrost prison, ×1. Obtained ring of space, legendary grade, ×1. Obtained immortal singularity fragment, ×10.
Ding.
Your mission, Twilight of the Empire, completion progress, January 2nd. Global announcement. Player Faustus from World Region number 616 has successfully slain the Shadowkin Overlord Ball, becoming the first player to kill a peak transcendent legendary grade powerhouse. Special reward granted to this player. Honorary achievement, Human Watcher. Global announcement. Player Faustus from World Region number 616 has successfully crushed the Shadowkin invasion. Special reward granted to all players in World Region number 616. Double EXP for 48 hours. The two world announcements crashed down one after another like thunderbolts. In an instant, the entire multiversal world channel exploded into chaos. What the hell? We players from other world regions contributed to the defense against the Shadowkin invasion too. Why does only World Region number 616 get double EXP? How is that fair? Protest. We players from other regions don't want anything else, just fair treatment. Holy shit, I didn't expect the system itself to be this biased. Was this game developed by players from World Region number 616 or what? But over in World Region number 616, the public channel was nothing but celebration. Thanks to the great Faustus for winning us double EXP. This is insane. At Faustus, Guildmaster is forever our god. By the gods, I hereby declare that from today onward, Faustus is my idol. Everyone, latest news, Munich Guild has disbanded on the spot. I heard even their guildmaster has already joined Doom Guild. Haha, that's completely normal. Here's something you probably don't know: those financial conglomerates back on Earth are now totally helpless when it comes to this game. The exchange rate between dollars and gold coins has already skyrocketed to 20:1. And even if they have gold coins, they still can't buy the most core assets in the 9 main cities. I heard all those commercial properties have been monopolized by Faustus.
What?
Faustus is that outrageous? Of course. Otherwise, how could he possibly pull off something as heaven-defying as killing the Shadowkin Overlord?
Ding.
You have slain the Shadowkin Overlord. Luck plus 100. Charisma plus 100. Achievement obtained. Human Watcher. Achievement rewards obtained. Epic grade NPC times 10, 0, 0, 0. Exalted grade NPC times 5, 0, 0, 0. Legendary grade NPC, low grade, times 10. The rewards have been automatically delivered to Polaris City. Daniel let out a long breath. At long last, the massive trouble posed by the Shadowkin had been dealt with. Now, all he had to do was crush the sixfold host in Winterhold of the North, and this mission would be fully completed. And this trip to the Abyss Rift had brought him an astonishing harvest. With the 10 newly rewarded legendary grade NPCs added in, the number of legendary grade powerhouses under his command had surged to 30. For Transcendent, 8 high grade, 5 mid grade, and 13 low grade. This force was enough to let him stand against any future version update, and it also gave him the confidence to confront the Shadow Council head-on. He opened his inventory and began checking his spoils. Among the items dropped by the Shadowkin Overlord Ball, the most eye-catching was a skill book glowing with an icy blue radiance. Permafrost Prison, SSS rank Forbidden Art. Learning requirement: Archer/level 150. Effect: draw upon the power of absolute frost and transform it into an arrow, creating a realm of eternal ice within a designated area, 1,000 by 1,000 meters. All enemy targets within the domain are forcibly afflicted with frozen, slowed, and icebound. Enemies inside the domain take damage equal to 200% of the caster's attack power every second. Duration: infinite, can be terminated by the caster at any time, consumes 1% MP per second. Description: a forbidden art said to have been created by an ancient great sage archer, using the heart of a frost dragon as its catalyst. Once the arrow is loosed, all lands for 10,000 miles are sealed in ice. Including Heavenfall Strike and Thunder Abyss, which he had obtained earlier, Daniel had now collected 3 forbidden arts. Unfortunately, the learning requirement for forbidden arts was level 150, so he still could not use them for the time being. With that thought, he put away the skill book and took out a ring glowing with a soft golden light. Ring of Space, legendary grade. Effect: grants an independent storage space of 300 by 300 slots. Living beings cannot be stored inside. ***. Daniel placed the softly glowing ring into the guild warehouse and tapped his fingertip lightly to confirm the sale.
Ding.
You have sold Ring of Space, legendary grade, to Doom Guild for 1 copper coin, triggering million-fold boost. The item sold belongs to the special equipment category. Please choose quality boost/quantity boost. Quality boost. Congratulations. You have obtained 1 gold coin. You have obtained Ring of Void, supreme grade. He took the brand new ring out of his inventory. Unlike the previous one, this ring was entirely pitch black. A deep blue gem was set into its surface, and within that gem, it seemed as though an endless galaxy slowly revolved. The ring felt almost weightless in his hand. The moment he put it on, an indescribable power spread from his fingertip throughout his entire body. Ring of Void, supreme grade. Effect: grants an independent space of 1,000 by 1,000 slots. Living beings may be stored inside. Time within the space flows in sync with the outside world, and living creatures inside may survive, rest, and recover from injuries normally. ***. Special: the wearer may anchor the entrance to the space at any chosen location and set access permissions. Buildings may be constructed within the space, crops may be planted, and living creatures may be raised there, as though it were a portable world. Description: legend says that the ancient god of the void forged this ring from the core of the void to imprison beings that even gods could not truly destroy. Later, the ring passed into mortal hands, and its bearer became the sovereign of that world within. Daniel stared at the description in silence for a full 5 seconds. A portable miniature world. Converted into real-world area, it was large enough to hold a small castle. And it could store living beings, grow crops, and raise animals. He slipped the ring onto his finger. With a single thought, his consciousness instantly sank into that void space. It was a gray-white world. The ground was smooth as a mirror, and above was an endless expanse of bright white emptiness. The edges of the space were wrapped in a faint golden wall of light, across which ancient runes flowed. A fine treasure. Daniel withdrew from the space, the corners of his lips curving slightly upward. With this ring, he could store all 30 legendary-grade powerhouses under his command inside it. Just imagine it using a portal to descend upon the main city of an enemy world region, and then releasing 30 legendary-grade powerhouses from the ring in an instant. The very thought of that scene was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Not far away, the human legendary-grade powerhouses had gathered together. Cardian, just now you addressed that young man as my lord? An elderly man asked hesitantly. You were truly revived by him? Unfortunately, faced with everyone's questions, Cardian and the others gave no response at all. It's good to see you again. Another powerhouse looked at Cardian's hollow gaze, his voice choking slightly. Even though you've lost your former memories, at least, you're still alive.
Yes.
As long as you're alive, that's enough. After finishing his inspection of the spoils, Daniel turned and walked toward that group of legendary-grade powerhouses. My lord. All 30 powerhouses bowed in unison. Daniel nodded, his gaze sweeping across the other human powerhouses. The Shadowkin have been destroyed. You may all return. At that moment, an aged legendary-grade powerhouse stepped forward. After hesitating for a moment, he asked softly, My lord, could you tell us what exactly Cardian and the others went through? For the dead to return to life, there must have been some price to pay, no? Daniel's gaze swept across the surroundings like a blazing torch. For the dead to return to life, the price is naturally no small one. As you can already see, they have lost all of their memories. His voice was calm as still water, yet utterly beyond question. As for the rest, I will say no more. But you may rest assured these revived forebears once shed their blood for the human race, and I will never dishonor their reborn bodies. He had no need to hide anything, nor any need to explain. With the strength he possessed now, no one could force him to reveal any of his secrets. The old man fell silent for a moment before finally nodding slowly. To be able to return to life is already a heaven-given fortune. Since that is the case, then let's not trouble my lord any further. We should be on our way.
Bruno, Cole, farewell.
Dozens of figures lingered with reluctance and sorrow, but in the end, they all turned into streaks of light and disappeared at the edge of the god's car. Daniel withdrew his gaze and turned it toward the Shadowkin castle in the distance. There were still tens of millions of Shadowkin warriors waiting for him to reap. He flew above the Shadowkin castle and raised stellar wrath. Arrow Storm, Shattering Comet, Etherlance, Serpent's Thunder Cell. 4 skills erupted at once, transforming into thousands of attacks that poured down like an apocalyptic catastrophe. Minus 79,596,461. Minus 79,616,751. Minus 78,466,451.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin overlord. Gold coins plus 450,000. Obtained Armor of Envy, legendary grade, times 1.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin commander. Gold coins plus 190,000. Obtained Demonic Warblade, exalted grade, times 1.
Ding.
You have slain a Shadowkin commander. Gold coins plus 160,000. Obtained Demonic Warbracers, exalted grade, times 1. System notifications surged in like a tidal wave, and Daniel directly turned off the repeated prompts. Half an hour later, the Shadowkin castle that had stood in the depths of the Abyss Rift for countless millennia had been reduced completely to ruins. Looking at the scorched wasteland before him, Daniel nodded in satisfaction. The Shadowkin threat has been resolved. Next, he lifted his gaze northward, and a cold gleam flashed in his eyes. It's time to head to the northern frontier. Winterhold, the Great Wall of the North. Flatten the human fortress. Use their heads as offerings to our ancestors. In this battle, our mammoth tribe will be victorious.
Kill.
Chirrup, chirrup, chirrup. Charge. Endless slaughter had dyed the entire region crimson with blood. The warriors of the 6 great non-human races and the human warriors fought each other desperately on a battlefield like a giant meat grinder. Every second, hundreds of lives vanished. And within the god's car, the slaughter among legendary grade powerhouses was still ongoing. At that moment, a figure appeared at the edge of the god's car. It was none other than Daniel. With the eternal black king spread wide, he stood beneath that twisted sky, sizing up the god's car before him. This battlefield was actually even grander than the one at the 9-star Abyss Rift, and the spatial fluctuations here were even more violent. No wonder the Empire could only spare so few people to suppress the Abyss Rift, so the main force was all tied down here. He raised a hand and activated the ring of void in his grasp. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 20 figures appeared out of nowhere. Carodian, Lucian, Tiana. 20 legendary grade powerhouses stood in a single line, each of them radiating a suffocating pressure. The 10 low legendary grade powerhouses rewarded by the system were all still in Polaris City. On top of that, Daniel had come in a hurry and had not brought them along. Besides, low legendary grade powerhouses would not have been of much help on the fiercest battlefield anyway. Daniel looked at the twisted battlefield before him, his voice sharp and commanding. Follow me. Drive out the non-human races and clear away every obstacle before humankind. We are willing to follow you, my lord. All 20 figures answered at once. Daniel spread his wings and charged into the god's car first. The 20 legendary grade powerhouses followed closely behind, like 20 unsheathed blades stabbing straight into the enemy ranks. It's you, Faustus Dash. Inside the god's car, an aged roar exploded like thunder. Daniel turned toward the source of the voice and saw an old man shrouded in dark aura rushing straight at him. The man was dressed in a black robe. His face was gaunt, and his eyes were filled with venom and killing intent. Dark Mage Iris, the most heavily wanted figure on the Empire's bounty list. Faustus, you dared kill my student, and now you actually dare come here to throw your life away. A flash of black light burst from Iris's body. He abruptly abandoned the opponent in front of him and appeared near Daniel in an instant. Protect my lord. Corodian's reaction was as fast as lightning. The 4 transcendent powerhouses moved at the same time, stepping in front of Daniel to intercept Iris's attack. Iris froze for a moment. What is going on? A cold smile curved across Daniel's lips. As expected, this old fellow was most likely the mentor of that fallen imperial genius, Hedlon. But judging from the current situation, it seemed this decrepit old thing had delivered himself to death of his own accord. We'll leave him to them. You go deal with the other non-human races. He gave the order to the powerhouses beside him. Very soon, more than a dozen figures turned into streaks of light and shot toward every corner of the battlefield. Daniel's gaze returned to Iris. At that moment, the 4 transcendent powerhouses were launching a frenzied assault against the Dark Mage. Golden swordlight, silver spear shadows, and dark crimson flames intertwined into a net of death, trapping Iris firmly in the center. Iris's expression turned ashen. For the first time, he felt a trace of regret for his earlier impulsiveness. How could this human youth possibly have so many transcendent powerhouses at his side? Daniel leisurely cast a detection spell. Iris, transcendent legendary grade. Description: a core member of the Shadow Council, the supreme powerhouse of the dark magic lineage, and the highest bountied existence on the Empire's wanted list. After reading the information, Daniel's smile deepened. Even peak Transcendent Overlord Ball had struggled when besieged by 4 powerhouses of the same tier, let alone Iris. After several minutes of battle, Iris was already at the end of his strength.
Now,
Corodian gave a loud shout. Daniel's figure instantly appeared before Iris. Wind's Embrace. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Minus 791,544,691. Minus 776,615,644. Minus 768,649,794. Even Daniel himself was stunned for a moment by those damage numbers approaching 800 million. But he quickly understood why. His title granted tenfold bonus damage against Dark-aligned beings. And Iris just happened to be Dark-aligned.
Ding.
You have slain Shadow Council Leader Boss, Iris. Obtained Skill Book, Shadow Arrow. Obtained High-Tier Divinity Fragment, ×1. Obtained Heaven's Car Pass, ×1. Obtained Ascension Stone Legendary Grade, ×2. Daniel's eyes flickered slightly. A Dark Element skill book, this really was an unexpected delight. He took out the skill book, which glowed with a dim violet radiance, and chose to learn it without the slightest hesitation.
Ding.
You have successfully mastered the skill Shadow Arrow, SSS rank. Shadow Arrow, SSS rank. Effect: inflicts a triple-layered dark curse on a designated target for 1 minute. Dark Abyss causes the target to fall into a coma. Dark Illusion directly reduces the target's maximum HP by 1% and maximum MP by 1%. Dark Erosion randomly seals one of the target's active skills. Description: a core forbidden art of dark magic. With a single thought, it can cast an opponent into an abyss of eternal damnation. However, Beware Light magic can dispel it. After reading through the skill's details, Daniel closed the interface. This was his first curse-type skill. 3 layers of negative effects, each one could be called top tier. In addition to the skill books, there were also 2 Ascension Stones. With that, 2 more mid-grade powerhouses would soon join his ranks. His gaze swept across the entirety of God's Car. Combined, the allied forces of the non-human races and the Shadow Council still had well over 100 legendary grade experts, while humanity had originally possessed only a little over 60. But with the 20 fresh reinforcements, he had brought 20 of the very best reinforcements. No less, the human side had completely stabilized its position. A faint smile curved Daniel's lips. Next came the harvest. In a hidden pocket world, several hundred players stood atop the city walls, staring out at the boundless undead army beyond the city. Skeleton warriors surged forward like a tidal wave. Gold-grade skeleton warriors raised their battle blades high, leading the endless flood of bones. Rotting corpses, gargoyles, liches, undead knights, hell reapers. Countless undead creatures were closing in on this solitary city. And in the skies above, dozens of bone dragons circled overhead. Their riders gripped pitch-black lances as they tore through the clouds at will, letting out ear-piercing shrieks. The faces of the hundreds of players had turned deathly pale, their eyes filled with terror. Charles, a player from World Zone number 616, clenched his fists tightly and turned to glare at the group of players from other world zones, fury blazing in his eyes. Look at the mess you've caused. His voice trembled with rage. All for some stupid quest, and you actually tore open the undead passage. Did any of you even think about the consequences? Yes, this is a game, but our choices can still determine the direction of the entire game. And unless something unexpected happens, the whole of Etheria is going to be swallowed by these piles of bones. Humph. Avely, A player from World Zone number 1213 let out a cold sneer. What? Can't handle it anymore? He folded his arms, his face full of disdain. The system's quest was to open the undead passage. Are we supposed to give up an SSS grade reward just because of your pathetic little sense of justice? Don't be naive. He paused, his gaze sweeping across every player present. We chosen ones all possess hidden talents of S grade or above. From the very first day the servers opened, we were thrown into this dump and forced to claw our way up step by step. With our strength, the moment we return to the main world, we'll rise to the very top of the player rankings in no time. The more he spoke, the more excited he became, and a feverish gleam lit up his eyes. And when that happens, we can lead all those rookies in the main world and wipe out the undead calamity ourselves. Fame and fortune, both in our hands. Isn't that perfect? Those words deeply resonated with the crowd. Even quite a few players from World Zone number 616 found themselves secretly agreeing. Averly's right. We're the chosen ones, the group with the highest talents in the entire game. How could the players in the main world possibly compare to us? Once we get back, they'll be begging on their knees for us to carry them. Exactly. What's the point of defending this broken city? Let it fall. That way we can finally head back to the main world. I've wanted to go there for ages. This place is unbearable, same few faces over and over again. I'm sick of it. Once we return to the main world, every one of us will be a god-tier player. We'll scare the life out of those country bumpkins and show them what real power looks like. As Charles listened to the chatter, his expression darkened like storm clouds. Inwardly, he let out a helpless sigh. Charles, you're taking this way too seriously. It's just a game. Does it really matter that much? One of the players from World Zone number 616 patted him on the shoulder.
Yeah.
It's just a game. What difference does it make where you play? Charles said nothing. He simply stared at the overwhelming undead army in the distance and tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. Winterhold, God's Car, in the northern frontier. Ever since Daniel's forces had ascended upon the battlefield like a thunderclap, the tide of war had begun tilting at an unstoppable speed. In less than half an hour, humanity's experts had already driven the coalition army of the non-human races and the Shadow Council into complete despair. Those legendary-grade non-human experts who had once been so arrogant were now few and far between. One after another, they fell beneath Daniel's arrows, dissolving into golden motes of light that scattered through the warped space. The final survivor was the beastfolk expert Montague. His body was drenched in blood, golden blood streaming from dozens of wounds and staining the cracked earth beneath his feet. His breathing was ragged and labored, every breath accompanied by intense pain. And yet he remained standing, preserving the last dignity of a warrior amid mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Then, an endless torrent of skills engulfed him. A few moments later, Montague coughed up mouthful after mouthful of blood, his body swaying on the verge of collapse. His eyes swept across the battlefield. The non-human experts who had once fought alongside him were now nothing more than cold corpses, scattered across every corner of God's Car. He knew that today he was doomed. The great plan of the 6 races had failed completely.
No.
I refuse to accept this dash. Montague threw back his head and roared to the heavens, his voice filled with rage and unwillingness. At that very moment, Daniel's figure appeared before him. Wind's embrace. Invisible chains of wind surged from the void, binding Montague fast. Faint golden runes flowed along those chains, each one containing the ancient laws of wind. Source of shadow. 3 layers of dark curses descended at once. A dark abyss dragged him into unconsciousness, a dark illusion eroded his life force, and a dark seal locked away his final means of resistance. Serpents, thunder cell. Tens of thousands of thunder serpents poured down from the sky, violet lightning illuminating the whole of God's Car as brightly as day. Minus 78,485,451. Minus 79,456,181. Minus 79,945,541.
Ding.
You have killed the non-human race's leader boss, Montague. Experience plus 2 billion. Contribution points plus 900,000. Gold coins plus 1,500,000. Obtained, high-tier divinity fragment times 5. Obtained, Heaven's Car Pass times 10. Obtained, ethereal shard times 5. The corners of Daniel's lips lifted slightly. At last, the final leader of the non-human races had fallen. Still, Montague's strength was nowhere near that of the Shadowkin Overlord Ball, and the loot he dropped could only be considered decent at best. Daniel put away the spoils and shifted his gaze beyond God's Car. Out there, tens of millions of non-human troops were still besieging Winterhold. Daniel shot out of God's Car and rose above the vast army of the non-human races. He raised his staff, and 4 skills erupted at once, splitting into more than 100 attacks that poured down like an apocalyptic natural disaster. Arrow Storm. Shattering Comet. Etherlance. Serpent's Thunder Cell. Minus 78,486,461. Minus 76,464,649. Minus 76,961,613.
Ding.
You have killed large numbers of non-human commanders. Gold coins plus 2,530,000. Obtained Berserker Armor Exalted Grade times 1.
Ding.
You have killed large numbers of non-human elites. Gold coins plus 1,640,000. Obtained Blood Battle Blade, Exalted Grade. ×1.
Ding.
You have killed large numbers of non-human warriors. Gold coins plus 1,160,000. Obtained Berserker Bracers, Exalted Grade. ×1. After several volleys, the vast non-human army that had once blotted out the sky was reduced to a field of corpses and ashes. When the very last non-human warrior fell, the long-awaited system notification arrived right on cue.
Ding.
You have completed the quest Twilight of the Empire.
Ding.
You have obtained gold coins plus 2 billion. Contribution points plus 2 billion. Merit points plus 3 billion.
Imperial Morale più 600,000.
Human merit plus 600,000. Obtained High Tier Divinity Fragment ×20. Obtained Heaven's Guard Pass Low Grade ×20. Obtained Ethereal Shard ×10. Obtained Ascension Stone Legendary Grade ×5. Obtained Key of Worlds Special Item. Obtained Phantom Potion Legendary Grade. Daniel froze for a moment. The gains from this wave were visibly enormous. He had now gathered enough high-tier divinity fragments. As long as he reached level 100, he would be able to fuse a divinity and step into the legendary grade realm. The Ascension Stone rewards were equally generous. These rewards were more than enough to push the strength of the powerhouses under his command to yet another level. But what surprised him the most was that among the quest rewards, there was actually a legendary grade potion. Daniel placed the Phantom Potion, legendary grade, glowing with a violet radiance, into the guild warehouse.
Ding.
You have sold Phantom Potion, legendary grade to Doom Guild for 1 copper coin, triggering million-fold boost. The item sold belongs to the potion category. Please choose Quality Boost / Quantity Boost. Quality Boost.
Ding.
Congratulations. You have obtained 1 gold coin. You have obtained Phantom Breath Elixir, Supreme Grade. He took the brand new potion out of his inventory. Unlike before, this potion was completely transparent. Inside the bottle was not liquid, but a slowly swirling mass of silver mist, like a compressed galaxy. Phantom Breath Elixir, Supreme Grade. Effect. After use, you may summon 99 clones. Each clone possesses 90% of the original body's strength. Their range of activity is 5,000 times 5,000 meters. Once they exceed that range, the clones automatically disappear. Special. The clones inherit all buffs and talent abilities of the original body and can use skills independently. The clones may also share vision and perception with one another. Duration. 30 minutes. Description. According to legend, an ancient god king refined this potion from fragments of his own soul. One man alone becomes an army of thousands. Drink it, and you yourself will become a force capable of trampling an entire kingdom. Daniel drew in a deep breath and tilted his head back, swallowing the silver mist in one gulp. The instant it slid down his throat, he felt as though his consciousness had been torn into countless fragments only to reform again in the very next moment. Except every fragment had become a complete version of himself. Swish, swish, swish. 99 figures stepped out from behind him, standing shoulder to shoulder at his side. Every single clone held stellar wrath in hand, their eyes gleaming with the same calmness and killing intent as his own. A faint smile rose on Daniel's lips. 100 of himself. 100 versions of himself, each possessing 90% of the same strength, the exact same talents, and the exact same skills. And with the blessing of skill replication, a single cast would be equivalent to 40 or 50,000 attacks. And once he mastered forbidden spells, one forbidden spell would be the same as tens of thousands of forbidden spells descending at once. The mere thought of that scene was enough to make one's scalp go numb. Daniel did not hesitate in the slightest and threw back his head to drink the potion.
Ding.
You have consumed Phantom Potion Legendary Grade. Talent Eternal Ring has been triggered. The potion's effect has been converted into a permanent effect. Perfect. He closed the panel, unable to suppress the smile at the corners of his mouth. With the support of Eternal Ring, this utterly unimaginable effect had now been extended into eternity. He shut off the status panel, joy surging in his heart. Just then, a world announcement thundered across the entire stellar world. Server-wide announcement. Player Faustus of World Zone number 616 has completed the main version quest, Twilight of the Empire, opening a brand new chapter in the history of the human empire. Through the fierce struggle of player Faustus, the invasions of the Shadowkin and the non-human races have been completely crushed. As a special reward, player Faustus is hereby granted the title of Grand Duke. At the same time, the gold coin drop rate in World Zone number 616 is increased by 10% for 24 hours. The multiversal world channel exploded instantly. I'm a player from another zone. Is there any way to switch world zones now? Stop dreaming upstairs. I already checked, no such option exists. This is unfair. Why do all the good things never happen to our zones? No, seriously, are the GMs of this game blind? They're just letting that cheating mutt do whatever he wants. World Zone number 616 is a bunch of bitches, riding the cheater bus and enjoying all the benefits. Fuck you. A bunch of sour grape losers. Idiots like you will never understand the moves of a god. Exactly. A bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well. All you can do is bark helplessly. Daniel took out a scroll glowing with golden light from his inventory. Letter of appointment to Grand Duke, rare. Human title, restriction. Human race only. Privileges. Any who are granted the rank of Grand Duke stand above all ministers, yielding only to the Emperor alone. Within the Empire, regardless of civil or military status, noble or common, all who hold office must bow and salute upon meeting a Grand Duke. A Grand Duke possesses supreme-grade legal immunity. No blade may touch him, no chain may bind him. Unless more than 30% of the Empire's citizens jointly call for judgment, none may convict him or strip him of his title. Those granted the title of Grand Duke may establish their own official residence and administrative offices, and may independently appoint military commanders and local officials. All subordinate officials shall be recognized under imperial law. They may also issue decree quests to all citizens of the Empire, with such quests officially notarized by the Empire. All rewards shall be paid by the Grand Duke personally. Those granted the title of Grand Duke may possess the Empire's highest tier territories, the Royal City class, with no upper limit on number, no restrictions on borders, and no limit on the population or military forces under their jurisdiction. Description: the title of Grand Duke granted land enough to stand as a king. From the day of your investiture onward, you shall be the sovereign of this domain and the eternal backbone of humanity. Daniel carefully read through the description, then used the appointment letter, without hesitation. Notice: you have successfully obtained the title Grand Duke. Grand Duke. A faint smile curled Daniel's lips. This title was already the pinnacle of the human empire. One step higher, and he would be Emperor of the Empire. But that step could not be crossed through merit alone. Even so, in practical terms, there was not much difference between a Grand Duke and the Emperor. Within his own territory, he could appoint officials as he pleased and confer titles upon generals at will. To put it simply, he was not much different from a local emperor. The only difference was that he had to conquer his own land himself. As long as his strength was great enough, there was no reason he could not seize more territory than even the emperor. Immediately afterward, Daniel took out the item he cared about the most from his inventory. Key of World, special rare. Restriction: usable only in World Zone number 616. Traits: this item is indestructible and may be used an unlimited number of times. When your iron hoofs shatter a city of another zone, you may personally annex the entire city and the land beneath it into the territory of World Zone number 616.
Description:
truth exists only as far as your arrows can reach. Justice exists only where your blade extends. After reading the description, a sharp glint flashed through Daniel's eyes. This item was no different from what he remembered. The only difference was that in his previous lives, it had been controlled by the major guilds, whereas now, it was in his hands. This is exactly what I needed. With a smile at the corner of his lips, he put the item away into his inventory. With it, forcefully killing world guardians and forcibly triggering inter-world zone wars would no longer be a problem. Daniel shifted his gaze to the ascension stones in his inventory. After several major battles in the Abyss Rift and the gains from the battlefield against the non-human races, he now had a total of 17 ascension stones. Then, without hesitation, he decisively sold them all.
Ding.
You have sold Ascension Stone, Legendary Grade, times 17 to Doom Guild for 1 copper coin, triggering million-fold boost. The sold item belongs to the Special Materials category. Please choose Quality Boost / Quantity Boost. Quality Boost.
Ding.
Congratulations. You have obtained 17 gold coins. You have obtained Ascended Starstone Supreme Grade, times 17. Daniel looked at the rainbow-colored crystals glowing in his inventory. Then his gaze swept across Upton, Theodore, Cole, and Elyrus, and in the end, he handed the Ascendant Starstone to Elyrus. A trace of envy flashed through the eyes of high-grade powerhouses like Upton, Cole, and Theodore, but no one said anything, because all of them had already used up 2 Ascendant Starstones in a very short period of time. But some time had passed since Elyrus had first used an Ascendant Starstone. Using a third one now would not go to waste. Elyrus accepted the Ascendant Starstone, her hands trembling slightly. She took a deep breath, and the crystal in her palm blazed with radiant light. The next moment, a pillar of golden light descended from the heavens, enveloping her entire body. The light was blazing and sacred, as though ancient gods themselves were watching her. A moment later, the golden radiance faded. Elyrus opened her eyes, and her aura was now completely different. Transcendent Legendary Grade. Through the succession of great battles, the potential of Daniel's subordinates had all been stimulated to an astonishing degree. Elyrus, in particular, had advanced all the way to the peak of high grade, and now, with the aid of another Ascendant Starstone, she directly broke through into the Transcendent realm. Thank you, my lord. Daniel nodded, and suddenly remembered that there were still 10 low Legendary Grade powerhouses, granted by the system, waiting for him in Polaris City. Back to Polaris City first. He turned and walked toward the portal. Polaris City. The portal lit up one after another. When Daniel stepped out of the portal, the sight before him made him pause slightly in surprise. More than 15,000 NPC powerhouses stood in perfectly ordered formation across the plaza. 10 low Legendary Grade, 5,000 Exalted Grade, and 10,000 Epic Grade. They all knelt on one knee, right hands placed over their left shoulders, heads bowed low in a posture of reverence and solemn respect. We greet our lord. Their voices boomed like thunder, echoing into the heavens. Daniel calmly swept his gaze over the assembled ranks. This batch of mid and lower tier powerhouses perfectly filled the deficiencies in the foundation of his faction. Carodion. He turned his head slightly. Other than the legendary grade powerhouses, take the rest and arrange accommodations for them. As you wish, my lord. Carodion respectfully accepted the order and led the 5,000 exalted grade and 10,000 epic grade powerhouses away. Daniel then turned his attention to the 10 low legendary grade experts. From today onward, Polaris shall be guarded by all of you together. The 10 powerhouses were briefly stunned, then gratitude flashed through their eyes. We are willing to die for our lord. Daniel nodded and took out 16 Ascendant Starstones from his inventory, distributing them among them. The powerhouses under his command were overjoyed and bowed deeply one after another. Thank you for your reward, my lord. Daniel waved a hand. The weapons and equipment are all in the Legion warehouse. Go to Eliris and collect them. By your command, my lord. At this point, the strength of the forces under his command surged once again. Transcendent powerhouses. Carodion, Lucian, Eliris. High-grade powerhouses. Tiana, Cole, Upton, as well as the former Hawk, Julian, Bruno, and others. There were also a number of mid-grade and low-grade powerhouses. In total, he now commanded 30 legendary grade powerhouses, along with tens of thousands of epic grade and exalted grade experts. After dismissing his subordinates, Daniel turned his gaze towards Stellar Wrath. After its last upgrade, the next enhancement had required devouring 100 supreme grade pieces of equipment. And after suppressing both the Shadowkin and the non-human races all this way, the legendary grade gear on him had piled up to the point where it could be sold off in batches. A few minutes later, the guild shop had already been stocked with an entire new batch of legendary grade and exalted grade equipment. He opened the equipment interface and selected upgrade. Notice, Stellar Wrath will devour 100 supreme grade pieces of equipment to upgrade. Confirm? Confirm.
Ding.
Your weapon, Stellar Wrath, has successfully upgraded. Current level, LV.20. Notice, the next upgrade requires devouring 300 supreme grade pieces of equipment. That's it? It can go up another round. Daniel clicked upgrade once again. Notice, Stellar Wrath will devour 300 supreme grade pieces of equipment to upgrade. Confirm? Confirm.
Ding.
Your weapon, Stellar Wrath, has successfully upgraded. Current level, LV.30. He opened the weapon panel. Stellar Wrath, Supreme Grade Longbow. Level, 30. Trait, Growth Type. Attack Power, 11,000 to 21,000, plus 10,000. Equipment Effects. Agility plus 5,000. Grants the additional skill Star Veil. Summons a Starlight Shield that absorbs 10 million damage. While the shield exists, the user is immune to all control effects. Each time a forbidden spell is cast, its effect is increased by plus 5. All Archer class skills gain plus 500% effect. Durability, infinite. Upgrade progress, 0/800. Description, a supreme grade masterpiece forged in the later years of the legendary arrow god Aranus. It contains the primal power of endless stars. Every pattern carved into the bow records a lost incantation, and every arrow it fires can call down heavenly punishment and tear apart the sky. After reading the attributes, a trace of satisfaction flashed through Daniel's eyes. Its attack power had doubled, agility had doubled, the forbidden spell bonus had increased from +2 to +5, and the skill effect bonus had risen from 200% to 500%. And this weapon had almost no level cap. That meant he could raise it to level 100, level 1000, or even level 10,000. By that point, the weapon's attack bonuses and attribute bonuses alone would be enough to make him invincible beneath the heavens. Top tier. He sighed in admiration and closed the panel. Daniel then turned his thoughts toward the Guardians of the World Zones. Next, he intended to initiate a World Zone War. And to forcefully trigger a World Zone War, he first had to defeat the World Guardians of another zone and obtain entry permission. With the strength of the 30-plus legendary grade powerhouses under his command, defeating a World Guardian should not be much of a problem. Just as he was thinking that, a system notification suddenly rang out.
Ding.
Server-wide announcement. The world rankings have undergone major updates. Please check them promptly. Daniel's eyes sharpened. Major updates? Why had there suddenly been such extensive changes? Wait.